Hello dear viewers, support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it, and also make sure you comment your thoughts. Now let's start the video. The next morning found Harry back at the helicarrier. Fury had asked him where he had gone, but Harry's eyes just flashed and he refused to speak about it. He told them he was fine and that they would soon find out, and find out they did. A couple of hours later there was a report delivered to Fury about the disappearance of current and retired government officials from their places of residence, some of which were lying right next to their partners. When Fury had their connections investigated, he found all of them had ties back to the Red Room, the hellish spawning ground of the Black Widow program. When next he saw Harry, Fury just nodded and continued on his way, to go speak to Natasha. It was an hour later and Natasha tracked Harry down to the lab, where he was amiably discussing potions with Bruce. She walked in and addressed him, "Agent Potter, I'd like a word." He looked up and nodded. He said goodbye to Bruce and said he'd be back in an hour or so. Then he followed her out. She led him to Fury's office, having gotten permission to use it earlier. When he entered the room, she closed the door and pressed the button he knew made it impossible for them to be overheard. Then she rounded on him. "How dare you? They were mine," she shouted at him. He stood there silently for a moment, and then said, "They still are. Take my hand," he said, it quietly and without emotion, but held out his hand to her. At first she looked shocked, but then there was a gleam in her eyes, and she grabbed his hand. They appeared in a room she was very familiar with. They were in the entrance hall of the abandoned Red Room facility. "Hand me your badge," Harry said in the same tone. She complied and he concentrated on it for a second. "When you are done, take your badge in your hand and say vengeance is best served cold. It will return you to your room, so that you can take a shower and change your clothes, if it is necessary. Please don't take more than an hour, otherwise I'll have to come looking for you." He made sure she understood, and when she nodded he pointed to a door that led to one of the ballet studios and disappeared back to Fury's office. She squared her shoulders and walked through the door. In front of her were all the tormentors from her nightmares, hands tied above their heads. Most of them had started struggling when she entered, while others just looked resigned and wept. Around their necks hung signs saying words that described their various misdeeds, with written confessions from each of them. When or if they were found, people would be so disgusted with what they had done, that few would care who took them. Natasha smiled. Harry exited the room and went to Natasha's quarters. He stood sentinel, in case anyone wanted to enter the room, to ensure nobody saw her arrive. Just before an hour was up, he felt the port key activate and heard her arrive. He stayed where he was, knowing he was as guilty as her for whatever she had done, but also knowing that those men had continued their deeds, and would have done more if they had not been stopped. They were just putting rabid dogs down. 10 minutes later the door opened and Natasha froze. Harry looked up at her, nodded, and left. As he walked away he heard a soft "thank you." He did not acknowledge her words. He just continued back to the lab. He took the time while he was walking to compartmentalize and store the memories he did not want at the forefront of his mind, away. When he reached the lab he was feeling better. He entered and said, "So how goes the studying? Has Tony started trying to write rune words again?" he said with a smirk. "Hey, it was only that one time and they didn't even work," Tony said. "It's because your EIWAS was upside down. Had it been the ISA, you may have actually caused an explosion," Harry replied. "That doesn't make any sense. The ISA is a straight line, it looks the same both ways," Tony said. "Have you gotten to the part about the proper directions to draw the lines with?" Harry asked. "Direction," Tony asked. "Even I know that. You have to start at the proper point. Some runes look like they have straight lines, but you have to draw part of a line one direction and then the other part in the other direction. That's how the scheme knows your intent. One rune can be drawn 10 different ways, and that's just for their basic functions. You're only on the first book. Practice only starts at book 3, Harry explained. "But I'm done with the first book, and you won't give me a new one," Tony complained. He had shot through a year's worth of information in a single night. Harry was beyond impressed, but he couldn't have them going any further without proper supervision. "And as I said, that's very impressive, but I can't be here to help, and as you've proven, you can't be left alone with more information. I'm sorry, Tony, but I like you too much to see you kill yourself. At your current rate, you'll go past my level of knowledge in days, but you need to be taught the basics the proper way," he sighed. knowing he needed to get a concession or Stark will become intolerable. I tell you what, if I teach you a basic light creation rune word, will you promise to stop experimenting? Okay, Tony said quickly. Too quickly. Had he been doing that on purpose? Oh well. Okay, let me show you. Harry started explaining the rune word for creating light, Bruce watching as he did. 5 minutes later, Tony had written his own first rune word. Simple enough to take energy out of the air without needing to be infused by direct magic. He was ecstatic, but kept to his word and started drawing it over and over again, muttering over and over again, "I'm doing magic." He went over to Bruce's station and started answering some questions about herbology, as it was a required field of study when working with potions. Unfortunately, they would have to stick with the potions that are made from only plants, as Harry couldn't save any magical creatures. He was certain he had most of the plants, if not just their cuttings, but he'd have to be very careful with those, as he didn't want to lose them. He had no doubt that that would make things difficult, but if anyone can figure out a way around the limitations, it would be Bruce. It was a while later when Harry was talking about one of his friends with a real talent for herbology and who he had ended up becoming that the door opened, and Steve walked in, a scowl crossing his face. "Shouldn't you be working on finding the Tesseract? Why are you distracting them, Harry?" "Relax, Steve. I'm just keeping them company while the machines do their work. You know how boring that can be. It's a waiting game at this point, and bored geniuses get distracted. A distracted Tony is a dangerous Tony." He looked over at said genius. "Am I right?" Tony looked up from his scribbling. He had gotten Harry to show him how to change the colors of the light, stating that that was obviously part of the light rune word, and Bruce had just chuckled, saying Harry should have known better. Tony was currently struggling to get purple to work, but he answered anyway, "I can get in trouble whether I'm busy or not." He looked up at his device that he had been ignoring for the last couple of minutes. "For example, I wonder who all knows about Phase 2. "Phase 2? Steve asked, as he walked up to look at the display. "Tony, now would be a good time to re-enable the cameras. Please put away your books, guys. We don't want certain people knowing about some of what we're doing," Harry said with a pointed look. Tony caught on almost immediately, Bruce only a second behind. Something about Phase 2 was not right. Harry was telling them something. They hurriedly put away the books and notes they were making. Tony switching the cameras back on when they were done while Tony showed Steve what he had found. "What are you doing?" Fury said as he marched into the lab. The confrontation slowly grew as people entered the lab and voices raised. Tony was supplying Steve with the information he had gathered, and Steve was coming to the realization that, while Harry was there, he was covered up again and he was not interrupting. Fury wanted this confrontation for some reason, and then it clicked. Fury wanted the team to be their Phase 2 but couldn't force his superiors to listen. He still argued that things never seemed to change, but his heart wasn't in it. Thor and Fury were screaming at each other when Harry suddenly spoke up. "Quiet," he said, but when nobody listened, he said more loudly, "Quiet." When all sounds stopped coming from the arguing people, Natasha trying to get Banner to leave and Fury blaming Thor for the need for Phase 2, Harry looked at Fury. The sharp look in his eyes immediately got everyone's attention. "The scepter is putting out waves of anger indiscriminately. I think it's trying to get Bruce on edge. Please evacuate the room, and Bruce, if you would." Harry didn't need to finish his statement. Bruce opened and downed a vial before a look of contentment covered his face. As everyone started leaving the room, there was a beeping from one of the screens, and Harry went to go look, and then there was an explosion. Harry came to with a ringing in his ears. He was disoriented but remembered an explosion. He looked around himself and found he was in a hallway with debris around him, but the hallway seemed intact, like it had fallen from above him. He looked up and saw someone waving at him. They were pointing at their throat. Harry touched his throat to see if he was injured, but he was not. A moment passed, and his memories came rushing back. Damn! There was an explosion. He apparated back to the hallway outside the lab and found Fury pointing at his throat again with the others, arranged around him. Harry remembered suddenly and cancelled the silencing spell with a move of his hand. "It's about damn time, Potter. Don't do that again," Fury said as he started moving away from them, calling for an update over his earpiece. The rest of the team were looking at him worriedly. "Are you well, friend Harry?" Thor said. "I'll be fine. It takes more than that to keep a wizard out of a fight," Harry replied. He saw Romanoff nod and Bruce was just standing there relaxed against the wall with half a smile. He heard Fury barking orders and Tony and Steve were running off to go help with the disabled propeller. Natasha was soon off as well, apparently looking for Barton. Bruce just followed Fury as he left. Thor and Coulson were going to go check on Loki and Harry told them to go ahead, while he sorted out his aching head. He concentrated, making the headache worse. Took a moment to conjure a vial and replaced it with a general pain potion. Giving it a minute to work, he felt around his body and found that he had a bump on his head. If it hadn't been for Coulson's suggestion that he add a hood, he might have had serious problems. The dragon hide was able to take most of the impact for him. Once he was thinking more clearly, he decided to go check on Loki. He apparated to just outside the room with his holding cell. He made himself invisible and snuck in. What he saw shocked him. Thor was in Loki's cell, with Loki standing at the controls and Coulson pointing the destroyer-inspired tech at him. There was a build-up of magic and Harry realized what Loki was going to do, just before he did. It seemed Loki was good with illusions and had a form of invisibility himself. Harry felt Loki approach Coulson and he jumped to tackle his friend out of the way, but it was too close. The scepter impacted Harry instead. The dragon hide was tough, but it could not withstand the entire blow. The tip of the scepter entered his back and Harry fell. As Harry and Coulson tumbled, Harry became visible again. Coulson was shocked, but keeping a cool head, he shot Loki just as he began to smile. Loki went through a wall and disappeared on the other side. Harry! Coulson, suddenly realizing Harry wasn't moving, turned him over. Something was wrong. Harry, what can I do? Coulson asked. Harry's eyes opened, but he didn't move. I think he got me in the spine, Harry said softly. At this point, Thor broke out of containment, shattering the cage as he exited. He came to Harry's side and asked, "Can your magic not help you?" "Need body to channel," Harry whispered. "Damn it, Harry! There must be something," Coulson said, panic in his voice. Harry had never heard the man show so much emotion. "There is. Marauders say activate, last chance, use as little as you can," Harry wheezed out. Coulson did not hesitate. He didn't even stand up. His hand went to his badge instantly, and he said, "No marauder without his pack." Never had Harry thought it more apt. 30 seconds later, Harry heard Coulson return. He was suddenly looking at the floor again, but couldn't feel a thing. He heard Thor gasp and then the medics entered. "Don't touch him," he heard Coulson say. "He's been injured, but he'll be okay." "You better be okay, Harry. Otherwise Fury will never let me hear the end of it. He actually might shoot me this time," Coulson joked. Harry couldn't help himself. He let out a laugh, and then suddenly started screaming as the rest of his body burst in pain. He screamed a good 30 seconds, while Coulson apologized over and over again, thinking he'd done something wrong. Suddenly, Harry's screams broke off. He was breathing hard, but Coulson was very glad to see that he had started moving again. When Harry was in full control of himself again, he slowly sat up and Coulson helped him up. "You scared the hell out of me, Harry." "What was that? What is this stuff?" Coulson asked. "Keep that safe. I can't store it just now. My magic isn't stable yet," Harry said seriously, and Coulson immediately put his hand inside his shirt, presumably depositing the vial in his pouch. "What is that stuff?" Coulson asked again. "The very last Phoenix Tears I will probably ever own. It can cure anything, fix any wound, but I cannot make it, and I cannot replenish it. It is the last," Harry said. "That is not possible," Thor whispered. "Even I've only heard of phoenixes in legend." Harry is right. If that is indeed Phoenix Tears, it is probably the most valuable thing on this planet, besides the Tesseract itself. My father would put it in his vault and it would be kept under guard at all times. Phoenix Tears are said to be able to heal even immortal beings. Wars have been fought over less. Coulson's eyes went wide. "I'll keep it safe. I promise." "Why were you screaming though?" "Ever had your spinal cord reattached? Not a fun process. Every nerve in my body started sending impulses to my brain, including the pain receptors." Coulson winced. A man with a high pain tolerance threshold would have passed out. Even now, Harry still impressed him. They helped Harry back to the command deck, after Harry assured them he didn't need rest. The tears would continue to work for a while yet. They met up in the briefing room where the rest of the team was waiting. Apparently someone had told them he was gravely injured, and the looks of relief on all of their faces was heartening. Of course it was Tony who spoke first. "Heard you were going to be out of commission for a while. Good to see you're feeling better." Harry hadn't seen him that serious before. "Why, Tony, I didn't know you cared," Harry said as he sat down gingerly. How are you feeling? Bruce asked, worriedly, interrupting Tony's no doubt snarky reply. Apparently the calming draft had worn off. I feel like I just had my spine replaced, to be honest, but I'll be okay. Just need some time before my skills are operational again. Harry said as he looked about the room, not knowing if they were being observed. Do you know how long that will be? Fury asked, walking into the room. He looked like he had been in a fight, but was back on task anyway. Not sure, sir. Half an hour at most. I can feel it coming back already. Harry replied, straining in his chair. Good. Romanoff was able to detain Barton. We'll need you to use your skills to get him back. Any means necessary is authorized. Fury told him. Authorizing any means bypasses a contract they had later created for the safety of Fury's agents. Harry didn't complain. They discussed what everyone had been up to, and Harry mentioned that once his skills were up and running, he'd be able to pinpoint Loki if he had not discovered the tracker. When he felt up to it, Harry went to where Barton was kept. He asked Romanoff to keep anyone out. It would not do to be interrupted. She nodded, stepped outside, and closed the door. Harry kneeled over the man, opened his eyelids with his fingers, and entered his mind. It was a mess. It seemed his emotions had been suppressed, while he was implanted with false memories. False memories making him a double agent. That would explain the difference. The Imperius suppressed your will, but you could still feel, and that allowed your emotions and subconscious to fight the commands. With his emotions suppressed, his subconscious could not fight the false memories, because he didn't need or want to. Quite insidious. It seemed that when Natasha had knocked him out, his subconscious had been able to reassert control and was purging the false memories. He would be fine without Harry's help, but he'd be tired. They were probably not allowed to sleep, for fear of losing control. Harry withdrew from Barton's mind. When he got to the door, he explained the situation to Natasha. She had saved her own partner. She looked relieved. Harry handed her 2 pepper-up potions. One of those is for you. When you get him up, give him the other. He'll need it. You keep on helping me like this and I might have to kiss you one of these days. Natasha said, grinning at him. Whoa, don't go talking crazy now. I don't put out until the 3rd date, Harry joked back. Depends on how good the date is, Natasha replied with a saucy smile. Damn it, woman. How am I supposed to focus on my job now? Harry continued. Cold shower? Natasha suggested, not skipping a beat. Harry just smiled, shook his head, and walked away. After his mental exercise in Barton's mind, he was feeling his magic respond to him almost like it should. Turns out he didn't need a tracking spell, as Tony had already figured it out. You will not go without the team. I don't need you popping over there and getting yourself killed without backup, Fury said, brooking no questions. And no apparating until you are fully back up and running. I don't need you leaving pieces of yourself all over the city. Do I make myself clear, Agent? Yes, sir, Harry said. He knew Fury was right. He wasn't exactly up to 100% yet. He followed the team, minus Tony, who was flying in his suit, as they entered the Quinjet and Barton took off. When they were in the air, Barton switched on the autopilot and approached Harry, who was sitting at the back of the jet looking out the window. I hear I have you to thank for the all clear and that elixir thing, Barton said. Yeah, sorry about that. I had to enter your mind to see what was done to you. If it makes you feel any better, I swear I only looked for what was wrong. I didn't go near anything else. Harry apologized. As for the pepper-up potion, no problem. I knew you'd be tired after your ordeal. No problem. I trust Fury to do the right thing. I'm just glad you were around. Wouldn't want to worry about turning on the team, Barton said. Then he asked with a quirked brow. So is it true? You're a wizard that casts spells and stuff? Harry Potter at your service, Harry said in lieu of answering the question, offering a hand. Glad we'll have friendly magic on our side then, Barton said, shaking his hand. Let me know if you ever need your bow enchanted. I don't know any enchantments off the top of my head, but I'm sure I can figure something out. Harry offered lamely. I'll take you up on that, Barton said with a smile. They started their strategy meeting as they flew, while Harry mounted his mirror on the back of one of his gloves so he could stay in contact with Coulson, where he was sitting in Fury's office. Coulson would in turn stay in communication with Fury, where he was on the deck. Coulson had a headset on that would record anything he saw on the camera, and show video only to Fury on the bridge. Coulson's idea. Romanoff handed him an earpiece, and he just smiled, shaking his head. Technology and magic don't mix. I don't want it exploding in my ear. Harry said. Speaking of magic, here I am in my dragon hide armor and you guys don't have any magical protection. What kind of tech do you carry? Maybe I can cast a couple of protection charms on you. Harry went about casting protective spells on them, where he knew it wouldn't cause problems, and ignored the smile from Natasha as he blushed slightly when he covered her bodysuit. Like what you see, she had asked. He supposed keeping spirits up was never a bad thing. When they reached the city, they were beset by monsters on flying chariots that were coming in from a hole in the sky. The Quinjet didn't last long after Loki shot out one of their engines and they crashed onto the street. They rushed out of the jet and saw Iron Man taking a bunch of the monsters on. Thor immediately went to go confront his brother as planned. When they stopped to evaluate the situation, they noticed a giant worm-like creature come through the portal. Tony got its attention when he found no weak spots, and led it to the team. Suddenly Bruce turned to Harry. "Don't think badly about me for this," he said. "I already know, remember? I actually look forward to meeting our other teammate." Harry replied with a smile. Bruce relaxed a bit, and started walking out to meet the Leviathan. "Dr. Banner, now might be a really good time to get angry," Steve said. "That's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry." As Bruce turned around to face the monster that was about to eat him, he transformed. Seeing it in person made a big difference, and Harry was both impressed that this behemoth of a man was so easily kept in check by his rather unassuming counterpart, and amazed at its strength. It punched the Leviathan in the face, and it went down. Harry just watched it in amazement as it crumpled and flipped over, until Tony blew it up, finally able to breach the exposed skin. When more creatures came through the portal, the team came together for Steve to assign duties. Barton was to be the eyes, informing them of what was going on. Tony was sent to keep the perimeter. Thor was sent to focus on the portal. Hulk was told to smash. "We'll keep the fighting here. Harry, you've got the light show. Get their attention." Harry just smiled and activated one of the other features of his armor. He levitated slowly into the air and started focusing energy into his hands as he held them over his head. When he felt he had enough energy, he pointed his hands at some of the monsters on the sides of the buildings. As he pointed, flashes of red light started shooting forward, some missing but most hitting their targets. The monsters started falling from the buildings and Harry was now a beacon to draw their attention. As they opened fire on him, he landed again and cast a shield, blocking all their ranged attacks. They had no choice but to come to him. "You never said you can fly," Natasha said to Harry as she started shooting at the approaching monsters on her side. "You never asked, and technically that was levitation," Harry replied, casting spells from his other hand. When there was a break in the fighting, they decided that someone should go to the portal device. Natasha volunteered and turned to Harry. "Want to give me a ride?" she asked Harry. "Of course, but we'll have to fly otherwise. I'll fry your equipment," he replied, not thinking that now was the time for innuendo. "I thought you said that was levitation," she asked, mildly. "That was," Harry replied. "You're going to have to get on my back and hold on tight." Harry turned. She didn't hesitate, throwing her arms over his shoulders. Harry activated the suit again on the last setting, and suddenly they were airborne. Slight twists in his posture would change his trajectory, and with her on his back, his hands were free to fire spells at the flying creatures. Harry noted that when he hit the chariots, they lost power and crashed. "That's a really useful ability," Romanoff said, taking Harry's gun from its holster and firing at a couple of monsters preparing to leap at them off the sides of the building. "You haven't even seen the fun kind," Harry said, as he pointed a hand at another chariot. There was a flash, and the chariot exploded in a giant flash of fire. "What was that?" Romanoff asked. "Maximized bombardment hex. I suppose I could have done without maximizing it," Harry said with a shrug. "Any other party tricks?" Natasha asked. Over the next minute as they approached the tower, monsters suddenly found themselves in strange situations. Some were sitting on balloons shaped like chariots that almost instantly popped. Some would heat up till they had to jump off. Some simply vanished or turned to jelly. Most of them simply stopped working or exploded though. Harry dropped her off and she told him that Steve asked him to help Tony with the Leviathans. As Harry flew to the nearest one, he communicated with Coulson, who said the director was taking a call from the council. Harry nodded and continued his work. He landed on one of the giant monsters, put his hand on its armor, and concentrated. Turning the piece of armor into a time-delayed portkey apparently affected some of its equipment, and it began to fall. Harry watched and counted down as just before it hit the ground, it disappeared. only to reappear on the other side of the portal. Harry was elated that that seemed to work. He was on his way to the next one when Coulson informed him of the nuke. Apparently Tony was going to handle it. Harry was worried, but decided to let him handle it. He sent 2 more Leviathans packing by the time the nuke arrived. Harry watched with dismay as Tony disappeared through the portal. He then noticed that the portal started to close. "Phil, what's going on?" Harry all but screamed at Coulson. "We had to close the portal," Coulson said. "But Tony's on the other side," Harry said. "We know. Rogers made the call," Coulson replied. "Damn it, Steve." Harry started racing to the portal, not knowing what he could do, but he realized that he wasn't going to make it. The portal was closing too fast. Just before it closed, Tony fell through the portal, knocking into Harry and sending him off course. It took a moment for Harry to reorient himself, and when he spotted Tony, he raced after him. Before he reached him, a big green figure came out of nowhere and grabbed him. Harry followed them down, and when he reached them, it was to find Tony's faceplate off. But Tony wasn't breathing. Harry couldn't do anything for fear of damaging the arc reactor. They waited, and then suddenly Hulk roared, seeming to have grown impatient of the metal man taking too long waking up. Tony jolted awake. Overcome by exuberance, Harry threw his arms around the big man's middle, exclaiming, "Hulk, you beautiful green behemoth. Thank you." Hulk didn't seem to know what to do, and just patted Harry lightly on the head. The smile on Harry's face felt surgically attached. When they arrived back at Stark Tower, Loki was lying by a Loki-sized crater in the floor. Harry turned to Hulk. "Your work, I take it?" "Pony God," Hulk said, nodding, repeating himself, not that anyone there knew it. Harry just smiled up at him, having removed his mask and hood. Hulk smiled back before scowling at Loki. "If it's all the same to you, I'll have that drink now," Loki said. Harry stunned him, then he looked around the place. "Kind of messy in here. I had some unexpected guests." Stark replied. "Well, let me fix it up for you," Harry said. Harry lifted his arms and directed his magic wherever he saw damage. Not a minute later, the place looked pristine. "Have you ever thought of life in the private sector? I just so happened to have a position open for a wizard," Tony joked. "You couldn't afford me," Harry joked right back. This devolved into some ribbing and joking until Coulson's voice was suddenly heard. "Agent Potter, we've got a second containment cell ready for occupation." "Oh, sorry, Phil. I forgot I had you on the mirror," Harry said as he lifted his arms so the team could see Phil smiling at them. The picture quickly changed and Fury's frowning face was in it. "Good job, Avengers. You exceeded my expectations. The Council will now need to explain themselves for their attempt to bomb the city as well, so I suspect they will need to save face by endorsing you," he said. "Agent Potter, if you can port the prisoner directly to the holding cell, that would be appreciated. Avengers, consider yourselves off duty." With that, the mirror went back to Coulson's face. "He meant to say good job, and thanks for saving my ass," Coulson said. "Mother f*** was heard from Fury before the mirror went back to being a mirror. Harry had spent a large portion of the day following the invasion, flying around Manhattan and sending alien corpses and items to SHIELD warehouses. Then he spent time repairing damage. People were looking in wonder and recording on their phones. As buildings repaired themselves, monsters disappeared, and wounds were healed. When he finally went back to Stark Tower to rest, it was to gaping mouths. "What?" Harry asked. "You've been flying around and fixing things, healing people and removing corpses, and you ask what?" Tony asked from his bar counter. "No, I've been looking for the dastardly bastard who might be doing such despicable crimes." Harry responded testily. "Of course I have. I don't know if you noticed, but there are a lot of suffering people out there. Buildings were about to be condemned, and people would have lost their homes. What was I supposed to do? Did you see that skyscraper that was about to topple? Did you know that there were still people trapped in it?" he asked incredulously. "Hold on a moment. Do I look upset?" Tony asked the room. "Does he think I'm angry at him for probably saving more people than the rest of us combined in the last couple of hours?" "Well, you do sound kind of jealous." "Not really angry," Bruce said. "Well, I'm not. If I could do what he's doing, you bet your ass I'd be out there right now doing it," Tony responded heatedly. "You do sound a bit envious, friend Stark," Thor said over a tall glass of beer. "Okay, fine. I'm a little jealous about his ability to do those things, but come on. People are comparing him to an angel flying around Manhattan saving lost souls and giving people second chances," Tony exclaimed. And saving lives is a bad thing? Romanoff asked. She had elected to stay when Barton left. He needed to sleep. Steve was volunteering, helping out some rescue efforts, last they heard. Well, no. But it's not miracles, is it? It's magic. Even Harry has said that magic runs on rules like science. Therefore it's quantifiable. And miracles aren't. No offense, Thor, Tony said. I never encouraged the Norse people to follow me after my earlier adventures on Midgard. Harry here isn't either. I don't see the problem, Thor stated. That's beside the point. Why didn't you make any statements? They don't know what to think, Tony explained. If you must know, Harry sighed, I was a bit of a celebrity in my old world. I never liked it. Being stormed by fans, jumped on by groupies, and having to burn my trash so that nobody goes selling my old junk just because I had once owned it. Do you have any idea how difficult it is to find a girlfriend when they all treat you like some kind of god? Yes, both Thor and Tony said. Okay, fine. Besides the two of you who probably love it, does anyone else understand? Harry asked. There was silence. Exactly. Okay. I can understand that, but you have a costume. Do you walk down the street looking like you do all the time? Tony countered. First off, this is not a costume. This is genuine dragon hide armor. Secondly, does it matter? I wanted to help the people, not get recognition for it, Harry said. Well, people recognized you, Tony said, pointing at the screen. He could see the words Ghost, continuing rescue efforts and restoring the city. You have a great heart, Harry, and I agree with you. Not everybody does it for the fame, Pepper said. She had taken the first flight home once things were resolved. She had struck Harry as an oddity. She was so down to earth. How she and Tony had ended up together. Harry would never understand. On whose side are you here? Tony asked incredulously. Why, I'm on the side of the angels, Tony. Pepper laughed at his perplexed expression. Okay, let's drop the subject. Is that normal for wizards, though? Could all of you do that kind of thing? Tony asked, pointing to the screen where they were once again showing the skyscraper correct itself, its pieces floating back to their original spots. Generally speaking, yes, but not so much. I was one of the most powerful wizards out there, but since I came here, it seems I have more endurance. Back home, I'd be in a coma from magical exhaustion for a week. From doing all that, Harry said. Maybe it's because you are the only wizard here. Logically speaking, if there's more people absorbing magical energy, there'd be less to go around, Bruce theorized. It's possible, I suppose. I don't mind it, of course, and it'll make rune work easier, if it's true, Harry said with a pointed look at Tony. That's right. That book said that some runes work better in places rich in magical energy. Do you know if there are real ley lines in this world? Tony asked. Ley lines aren't real, Tony. Everybody knows that, Harry joked. Hey, how am I supposed to know that? You show up doing magic and tell me it's possible for normal people to do some magic, given the right circumstances. I can only speculate at this point. Tony defended himself. Normal people can learn to channel magic through runes. You're a far way off from doing magic yourself. That being said, did you know there are safety runes made specifically to protect buildings from things like fire and age? Harry asked. There's even supposed to be one that can repair damage, at the cost that you can't make changes or it will revert. That is interesting, and maybe I can read all about it once you give me the books. Tony had a hungry look in his eyes. Fine, I did say I would, Harry said. He got up and disappeared. Does he do that often? Pepper asked, shocked. Yes, came the reply from everyone. Okay then, Pepper said, having been shocked again by the communal response. Tony was staring at her. What? Nothing. I'm just waiting for your response for when he comes back, Tony said. Just then Harry popped back and Pepper jumped at the sound. Tony just laughed. You could have warned me. She swatted his arm. You'll get used to it. Already he was moving around the counter to go to Harry, the hungry look back in his eyes. Harry handed him the next volume. He walked over to Bruce and handed him 2 books. Hey, why does he get 2 books? Tony complained. Because he can't start making potions without the ingredients. Harry replied. You, on the other hand, promised not to experiment and still almost caused an explosion, doing just that. Tony, what is he talking about? Pepper asked sweetly. Tony stared daggers at Harry for a second. Nothing, honey. He's just jealous of my intelligence, he assured her. Pepper just glowered at him, If you experiment with me under the same roof as you, I swear, I will move out. Gee, thanks, Harry, Tony said sarcastically. She's right to be worried. Runes can be dangerous. One of my friend's mothers accidentally killed herself right in front of her daughter, and she was a researcher with a mastery in runes. It wasn't exactly true. Luna's mother was a spell researcher, but the same principle applies. I've stressed to you the importance of being careful many times now. If you kill yourself accidentally, I can't be held accountable. Tony, please don't play with something you don't fully understand, Pepper begged him. Okay, fine. I promise I'll be careful and wait until I have a proper grasp of the dangers. Tony said to Pepper, then he looked at Harry. Happy now? Yes, actually. Tony, we're going to change the world with the stuff we come up with, and there's no hurry. I'd like to get rid of your dependence of that arc reactor first, before we start though. There's always a danger that something we work on could depower it or overload it, Harry said. What do you mean, get rid of his dependence on it? Pepper said. He means that he's got a spell and some potions that will get rid of the shrapnel and the need for the arc reactor, Tony said with a soft smile. Really, that's wonderful news. Pepper actually had tears in her eyes. She turned about and ran to Harry, hugging him fiercely. Thank you so much. Keep your hands where I can see them, Potter, Tony exclaimed. Pepper turned around on him, scowling. You will not ruin this moment for me, Tony. You won't. Hey Harry, care to whip us up some butterbeer? My arc reactor is running low, Tony said. Sir, your arc reactor is at 74% capacity. I don't think Jarvis began. No, it's not. Tony began. Jarvis, shut up, he stage whispered. As you wish, sir, Jarvis complied. Harry was still amazed at this technology. A genius Losi built my man. Thank you, Jarvis. You're welcome to talk to me whenever you want, Harry replied. You're welcome, Harry, Jarvis replied. He'd taken to using Harry's first name at his insistence. Harry looked at Tony and said, You should have just asked if you wanted more. I actually have a tap enchanted with it at my bar. Limitless butterbeer and soda at the turn of a knob. I'll take one. How much will it cost me? Tony asked, seriously. Enchanting is expensive work. It'll cost you at least 5,000 galleons, Harry said sarcastically. Jarvis, Tony said. Running search now. Jarvis replied, 125 results found. Shall I display them? Please, Tony responded. On the main screen, that Harry had thought was a TV, a galleon appeared. Apparently 25 of them were sold to a pawn shop in Malibu 6 months ago. Collectors have since entered a bidding war. Currently they sell for about... They are pure gold and bear the image of a dragon and what appears to be a wizard, sir. Every head in the room turned to Harry. What? I needed cash. I only got a couple of thousand for them, though, Harry responded, flabbergasted. Jarvis, get me one of those coins, Tony said. Do you have any more of them? He asked Harry. A couple of million, yeah, Harry said. Tony just laughed until he realized that Harry wasn't kidding. You're serious? Holy sh... Tony, Pepper warned. This is amazing, Tony said. The guy is a bona fide hero, with more money than God, and he worries about fame. Seriously though, give me your account info. I'll set up a payment. I'm assuming you want the galleon's gold value in payment? Actually, Tony, that gold is from my world. I can't use it or your economy will take a hit, Harry said seriously. And don't worry about payment. I'd feel bad charging a friend. And he's conscientious too. Why aren't you walking around with supermodels hanging on both arms vying for your attention? Tony asked incredulously, and I refuse not to pay for it. When I show it off one day, I want to be able to brag about how much it cost, and being one of the first to own one. Add to that you're setting the standard for future enchantments that produce an infinite resource. We can't have my business partner underselling himself. Supermodels might be some people's dream, Pepper said, looking sternly at Tony, but Harry is a nice man. We'll have to find him a nice girl. Natasha, you interested? Oh, I've indicated my willingness on multiple occasions. He never gives me an answer or evades, Natasha joked. Or he thought she was joking. He wasn't certain anymore. Not since... Hold on, why do I need a matchmaker? Harry asked. Because nobody deserves to be alone. Plus, who will we take on double dates that isn't interested in doing business? Pepper asked. That excludes me then, Harry said triumphantly. I intend to do a lot of business with Tony. But you're already working together, that's different, Pepper said. At least with you around, Tony doesn't seem to have the upper hand in the conversation. Actually, the more I think about it, the more I like it. Let's set a date. Natasha, when works for you? Pepper asked, suddenly enthused. What is happening? Tony and Harry asked at the same time. Shush, the women are talking, Pepper said, and took out her tablet to look at dates. Quickly, Harry, make with the butterbeer to distract them, Tony said. He sounded like he was in a real panic. Right, Harry said. He walked to the counter and conjured a pitcher, filled it with water and transfigured it into butterbeer. Tony hastily took out glasses for everyone and poured drinks. Harry levitated them from the counter and floated them to the other occupants of the room. Pepper jumped when she saw the floating glass. When she saw Harry had his hand up directing the drinks, she took one. Natasha took another. Thor put his, now empty beer glass down and took the floating drink. He had been enjoying the back and forth of conversation and didn't want to spoil his entertainment, much like Bruce, who was listening to them and already reading one of the books, stopping only long enough to take the glass floating in front of him. A toast, Tony said, to victory. To victory, everyone intoned and took a drink. Oh my, this is delicious, Pepper said. I don't know that I can drink too much of it though, it seems rather rich. That's the beauty, Tony said. It's water turned into butterbeer. It turns back into water in your stomach. You can drink as much of it as you like and never gain an ounce. Really? That's amazing. Imagine the health benefits. Or dieting. This could lead to the end of obesity, Pepper said in wonder. You really are amazing, Harry. Thank you, Harry said, glad that they had changed the subject, or so he thought. Anyway, as I was saying, I know this wonderful little place that overlooks the beach, Pepper continued. It didn't work, Harry, do something else, Tony said urgently. She's your girl, you do something, Harry replied, resigned. She knows all my tricks, but you've got so many of them, Tony begged. I don't think my tricks will work here. Besides, I won't really mind spending an evening with two beautiful women, Harry said sincerely. Said women apparently heard him and stopped their conversation to thank him. Harry suspected, now that he had accepted his fate, they were just continuing to get on Tony's nerves. He turned to Tony and whispered, Besides, I can always do this. He got up, put down his glass, and went invisible. Traitor, Tony said. Take me with you, he finished. Would that I could, Tony? Harry replied, becoming visible again. But I might fry that heart of yours. When can you have the potions ready? Tony asked, seemingly resigned himself. A couple of days, I think. In the meanwhile, I think I've thought of a magic I can use around you. It's also an example of what runes can do. Harry said, having had a thought. He conjured a bowl and replaced it with his pensieve. Thor recognized it and got up, wandering closer. This is the only pensieve currently in existence in this world. I one day would like to create my own one, but the process was lost, hundreds of years ago. What does it do? Natasha asked as Tony started examining the detailed runes on the first rune-based artifact Harry had ever shown him. This marvelous device allows people to share memories, Thor enthused. Harry showed it to us yesterday, when he and I went for a drink on his flying carpet. A most wondrous experience. You have a flying carpet? Natasha and Pepper asked, with wide eyes, a look Harry could not identify in Natasha's eyes. What is it with people and flying carpets? Harry asked. What kid didn't dream of finding a magic carpet and flying around? Pepper asked, rhetorically. Or escaping, Natasha mumbled. Nobody answered. Pepper just had a smug look on her face. I suppose I could take you ladies on a flight sometime, but please let me invite Coulson. He wouldn't forgive me if I took you all out on it for a joyride and had not invited him, Harry said. Tony, in the meanwhile, had finished his inspection of the bowl. I don't understand anything on here. I just recognize the runes. It sure seems intent is important, and I didn't think rune words and clusters could go this far, he said to Harry. This is admittedly one of the most complicated rune schemas I have ever seen myself, but once you see what it does, you'll understand, Harry said. He then started thinking of a memory he'd like to share. I would suggest something from your earlier years at your magic school. I doubt the ladies would appreciate some of the earlier or later memories you showed Steve and I. Thor suggested. That makes sense. Good call, Thor. Wouldn't want to be drowned in a sea of estrogen the moment we come out. Harry said, deciding on a memory. He put a finger on his temple and withdrew it with a memory clinging to the finger. He placed it in the bowl and explained the process. Soon Harry was reliving his sorting from first year, foregoing explanations and skipping over many of the other children's sorting, explaining only that one could accelerate and rewind the memories till you got to the necessary parts. Everyone stared in wonder, save Thor, who had seen his own share. "Is this kid drinking wine?" Tony asked, having walked over when he saw it. "I never noticed that." "Probably. Wizards are mostly immune to alcohol poisoning and getting drunk. As such, there were no laws against underage drinking," Harry explained. "What do you mean you never noticed? We're inside your memory," Tony exclaimed. "The human mind is an amazing thing, Tony. Our subconscious picks up more than our conscious minds. That's why pensieves are so sought after," Harry explained. "You never know what you missed and your subconscious picked up." Tony whistled. "I can see how that would be useful." Thor looked up at some stage, inspecting the ceiling, and exclaimed when he noticed a bird in the rafters of the Great Hall. "By the Allfather's beard! Is that a phoenix?" Harry looked up and saw Fawkes. "Huh, I never noticed him there either. He was my old headmaster's familiar. We never saw him again after Dumbledore died," Harry explained. "He must have been a great man to be able to familiarize himself with a being of such purity," Thor exclaimed reverently. "He was," Harry said. He had long since forgiven him for his faults. "My father will never believe I saw a phoenix. He once expressed a desire to meet one, but thought them all extinct," Thor said in wonder. The memory ended and everyone went back to themselves. Harry checked on Tony first to ensure there were no effects to his arc reactor. He was fine. "I'm sorry. If I were able and knew where Fawkes was, I'd be happy to introduce them," Harry said. His eyes suddenly got a far-off look. "Do you hear that?" he asked, in wonder. Harry stood up and went to the window as if searching for something, but couldn't spot anything. The feeling went away. "What did you hear?" Tony asked, wondering if he should be worried. "I could have sworn I heard Phoenix song. I must have imagined it. Fawkes is in a whole other reality." He couldn't. There it was again, but this time stronger, and Harry knew he wasn't imagining things. He ran out the window to the helicopter pad. "Harry, what is it?" Natasha came out after him, eyes on the sky as if expecting to see another portal. "I'm not certain, but for a second there I could have sworn I heard my old headmaster's familiar. He was calling to me," Harry explained. "Both times seemed to happen after you said his name. Is there a chance that your saying his name calls to him?" Thor asked, having followed them out. "You think so?" Harry asked, and then thought about it. Nodding, he said, "You might be right. Names hold power, and Dumbledore always said Fawkes would come when someone showed him loyalty." When he said it, he felt it again. This time, though, there was a tone of panic and confusion. "Oh no, I think he was trying to come to me and is in trouble." Everybody stepped back. Harry raised his arms and started concentrating pure magic at his fingertips. He was still tired from his work restoring the city, but he couldn't help himself. It's what he did. When the magic became too much to look at, Harry yelled, "Fawkes," at the top of his lungs, sweat running from his face with the effort, focusing all of his intent on sending the magic to help the Phoenix. The magic flared even brighter, before dissipating into nothing. Harry fell to his knees as the magic left him, breathing hard. Whispering to himself, he said, "I'd better not have killed you, Fawkes." Suddenly there was a flash of light and fire as a song that could now be heard by all filled the air. Harry looked up and saw something he never thought he would again. "Fawkes!" he exclaimed, before promptly falling unconscious. It was some hours before Harry regained consciousness. His magic was back at the level it had been the night before he sent most of what he had left to assist Fawkes. Harry opened his eyes to an unfamiliar room. He was struggling to recall how he had gotten here. He sat up and looked around. Next to his bed on the back of the chair slept a very tired and bedraggled-looking Fawkes, his head under his wing but seemingly sleeping peacefully. Harry slowly and quietly got up. He went out the door and went down the hall till he reached the familiar lounge area and found Bruce sitting there. Bruce looked up and a smile bloomed on his face. "Oh, hi there, Mr. I just summoned a magical being from across realities. Good thing you told us magical exhaustion is a thing, or we might have worried more," Bruce said, but with good humor, as he got up. "Yeah, that's kind of my thing. Random stuff just keeps happening." "Anything happen while I was out?" Harry asked. "Nothing much. Tony is working on that device to send the Tesseract to Asgard with Thor and Loki. I've helped out in design, but it's all in production now. It should be ready in a couple of days. Bruce responded. Anything else? I didn't blow up the electronics in here, did I? Harry asked, thinking about how quiet it was without Tony around. No, it seems to have all dissipated when you sent your magic to help your friend, Bruce said. You have had a couple of visitors though. Agent Coulson, Steve, Clint, and Natasha. Here he got a thoughtful look. She actually seemed worried there for a bit. Nah, it's probably just an act. She loves doing that. Harry scoffed. Bruce's eyebrows raised. You think so, do you? Because I don't think her coming back was an act, Harry. She was actually here, Bruce said. You do realize that she might actually like you, right? I hadn't considered it, actually. She's been the same way since I met her, Harry said, thinking back. And you never did anything super magical to help her out in any way, did you? Bruce asked. Well, kind of, came Harry's lame reply. Don't you like her? Is she not your type? Bruce asked. No, of course I like her. She's fun to hang out with, can carry an actual conversation, and have you seen what she looks like? You could be gay and still want to be with her. Harry exclaimed. That's enough. Jarvis, if you would? Bruce asked. Of course, Dr. Banner. The message is sent. Jarvis replied. Jarvis, what did you do? Harry asked quietly, dangerously. I sent a recording of your conversation to Agent Romanoff at Dr. Banner's request. Jarvis stated. Oh, did he now? Harry's eyes flashed. Now hold on, Harry, before you get upset. Bruce tried to placate Harry. You better start explaining before I turn you into the world's angriest, greenest chihuahua, Harry said, still stalking forward. Okay, I saw you struggling last night, and you seemed the shy type around ladies. So I thought I'd help you out, Bruce said honestly. Harry's anger dissipated, but then he smirked. You do realize that puts you on the list of people to get even with, right? Jarvis, any chance you could stop that mail? Bruce asked, suddenly scared. I'm afraid not, Dr. Banner. She seems to have already listened to it. I received a thank you from her in return, Jarvis said. Bruce just slumped. Any chance saying sorry would help? He asked Harry. It can't hurt. Harry smiled and walked away. Today seems like a good day to get his payback on Tony. Maybe that will put Bruce in the right frame of mind. I'm sorry, Bruce called after him as he left. Jarvis, do you know where Tony is right now? Harry asked. He's working on the project Dr. Banner informed you of in his lab, Harry. Jarvis replied, and I do apologize for my complicity in Dr. Banner's plan. He assured me it was for your own good. Don't worry about it, Jarvis. You're the good sort. I can tell your intentions were pure, Harry said. Please let me know when Fox wakes up. Of course, Harry, Jarvis replied. Oh, and Jarvis, I'm about to do something funny. It's completely reversible, so no harm will come to Tony. I expect you to not say anything to Tony, but be a dear and send a recording of when he notices to Agent Coulson. Of course, Harry, Jarvis replied. Harry was led to Tony's lab by a helpful Jarvis. Entering, he said, Hey Tony, you remember how you sent that video of me to the internet? Hey Harry, good to see you up, and yes, I do recall something about someone uploading a video of you to the internet. I believe you thought it was me and turned my fingers to thumbs to show your displeasure, Tony said as he continued working. Oh, that wasn't your punishment. I'm just here to remind you that payback is still forthcoming, Harry said. So, what are you working on? Tony's fingers had stopped moving the moment Harry said it. You know, I didn't know you when I did that. Couldn't we just let bygones be bygones? I'm afraid not, Tony. As you told me yesterday, I'm setting a standard for the future. Can't just encourage people to get away with things, now can I? Harry said with a smirk. What are you going to do? Tony asked apprehensively. Oh, I'm sure you wouldn't want me to spoil the surprise, Harry said with a smile. Tony seemed entirely too scared to talk about the project, and Harry didn't want to keep him, so he decided to leave having put in place his magic, layering it for a few days. When Harry left, he was informed that Thor had come to visit. He went back to the lounge only to be informed Thor had gone to Harry's room. He found Thor standing in his door just looking at the phoenix. Hey, Thor, how are you? Harry asked as he walked up. I am still shocked by the presence of this wondrous creature. When I awoke this morning, I was certain it was a dream and had to come verify it once more. Thor said, still staring at the phoenix. As if knowing it was being spoken of, The Phoenix awoke and looked up at them. "I believe Fawkes has woken up, Harry," Jarvis said from the ceiling. "You know, Jarvis, I think you might be right." Harry chuckled in amusement at the AI's sense of humor. Fawkes just looked up at the ceiling for a moment and flamed away onto Harry's shoulder. Harry wasn't shocked, but Thor had jumped towards where the Phoenix had been, thinking it was spontaneously combusting. Looking back at Harry, he showed relief. "It seems to have some of your talent for shocking people," Thor chuckled. "You have no idea. Fawkes here once saved my life. You recall the fight with the basilisk?" At Thor's nod, Harry continued. "He was the one that blinded the basilisk. Phoenixes are immortal, you know. When they grow old, they burst into flame and are reborn from the ashes. Truly, you are a good man, Harry. For one such as that to come to your aid. Greater even, as I sense it has started bonding with you," Thor said. "What?" Harry asked, looking at Fawkes. The bird nodded, puffing its chest out proudly. Then he warbled a sad note. Somehow, Harry knew it was still in mourning over their old world. Harry scratched the Phoenix's head. "Don't worry, Fawkes. I am told I was brought here to fix things. For our old home, too," Harry finished in his head. Fawkes looked up sharply, apparently having heard the thought. Fawkes let out a song of pure joy, and a feeling of hope bloomed throughout the penthouse. Harry wouldn't argue or complain about the company. Hell, Bruce would be happy to have the calming presence of the Phoenix around. Thor, however, seemed amazed yet again. "Truly? You were sent here to help this realm?" "To be fair, I thought it was random, but when has that ever been the case in my life? I honestly don't know what is coming, but I doubt your brother's attack was the end of it. He may have been part of it, though," Harry said uncertainly. Thor grew pensive and nodded. They went back to the main lounge area, where Bruce was sitting with his eyes closed, a small smile on his face. "Hey, Bruce. How are you feeling?" Harry asked. "Better than I have in a long time, Harry." "That sound just now, was that the Phoenix?" Bruce asked with awe in his voice. "That would be Fawkes' doing, yes. Phoenixes can lighten spirits and calm emotions in equal measure," Harry replied. Bruce got up, walked to Harry, looked Fawkes in the eye and said, "Thank you." The Phoenix jumped from Harry's shoulder to Bruce's and rubbed his head against his. Bruce reached up almost automatically and rubbed the Phoenix's head. Feeling even better, the smile on his face growing more. "Okay, so I'm about to head home. I've got some potions to brew for Tony. Want to come see where I live?" Harry asked with a hint of excitement. "Absolutely," Bruce said, not wanting to give up the chance of seeing his first potion in the making. "I'm afraid I would do you no good in the making of potions. My skills lay in other directions. I should probably go spend some more time with Jane, while I still have time." Thor excused himself. "No problem, Thor. See you again soon," Harry said as Thor walked away. He looked up at Fawkes. "Do you have enough strength to travel to my home, or would you rather catch a lift?" Fawkes just released an indignant squawk and stared at Harry. "Okay, Bruce, put a hand on my shoulder and I'll take you there." Fawkes made another chirp and Harry frowned. "Are you sure?" Silence. "Okay, never mind. Fawkes has indicated that he will take you. See you there," Harry said and apparated away. Fawkes and Bruce following after. "Okay, that was strange," Bruce said, looking at the Phoenix, who seemed no worse for wear. "Welcome to my home," Harry said to both of them. "Where are we?" Bruce asked. "Malibu," Harry replied. "It's where I arrived when I came to this world, and it quickly grew on me. S.H.I.E.L.D. provided the house, but I suggest you don't leave the property without me. It's protected magically and you won't find your way back." "You mean to tell me we're in a magically secure villa at the ocean and I don't have to worry about anyone finding me?" Bruce asked. At Harry's shrug and nod he laughed. "You are quickly becoming the best friend I've ever had. A safe place to work in a Phoenix for company. I haven't felt so good in years," he exclaimed. "Friend or not, there are some secrets I must protect, and for that I have this." Harry pulled out some contracts. "While you are living with me," at this Bruce frowned. "Oh wait, I haven't told you about that yet, have I?" Bruce shook his head. "Oh, sorry about that. Let me show you around first." Harry took him on a tour of the house. With all the expansion charms, it was more of a mansion, so it took a while. "You mean to tell me all this is mine?" Bruce asked, indicating the rooms they were currently standing in. It had a large living room with comfortable couches with a kitchen, a potions lab stocked with everything he might need, including a chemistry set, but no potions ingredients. Yet, a bedroom with a king-size bed and a walk-in wardrobe filled with clothing in Bruce's size. Harry had requested help from S.H.I.E.L.D. getting him things Bruce might need. The kitchen was stocked with a gas stove and a cupboard that was enchanted to act like a fridge and freezer, also expanded for convenience, stocked full with food. Harry had showed him the cupboard and indicated that the freezer section had stasis charms that activated once the glass door was closed, meaning he could put anything away and have it remain unspoiled indefinitely. The fridge part was actually cold to keep water and other things cold. Well, yes, the whole Upper East Wing is yours, Bruce. I hope you don't mind. I love the sunset, so I took the West Wing, Harry replied. There will be some things to get used to, like magical light activated by voice command, but you'll acclimate quickly. Oh, and you'll love this, Harry said as he walked to a fireplace. Hearth activate. The logs in the fire instantly took to burning. Hearth deactivate. The fire went out. The wood doesn't ever burn out, and the fire should generate enough heat to heat up your entire place, Harry said proudly. That's both useful and interesting. Was this one of your ideas for free energy? Bruce asked, still looking around. He was currently inspecting a bookshelf that had a couple of new volumes Harry hadn't given him yet. He could see himself sitting by the fire reading late into the night. Not really. Enchanting a fireplace is less effective and wastes energy. I was thinking of enchanting something like an engine that runs and creates permanent rotation. That could be hooked up to generators, right? Harry asked. If you can do that, he'll probably ask that you demonstrate with a car first. I can imagine him wanting a car that doesn't require fuel. Bruce chuckled. Harry went about explaining and demonstrating the contracts to Bruce. Bruce had no issue with signing them after he realized they protected both their interests and would make it easier to trust each other. Harry then took him and Fawkes down into the trunk. Okay, Fawkes, I'm just warning you, there's a window in here that has an illusion of Hogwarts, the way I want to remember it. He opened the door and Fawkes immediately flew to the window, looking longingly out the window, a sorrowful song being sung for a long-lost home. I know, Fawkes. I miss it too, Harry said, walking up to the phoenix, and softly stroked his feathers. Bruce was impressed with the illusion and had the customary response when seeing the giant tentacle. This seemed to have the effect of lifting both his and Fawkes's moods. They went to the library next, while Fawkes somehow communicated that he wanted a perch set up by the window. Apparently it was now Fawkes's room. Harry didn't mind. Harry warned Bruce about the restricted section, and once Bruce was scared by the monster book of monsters, Harry showed him how to calm it down. Strangely, Bruce seemed to take an instant liking to the book after that. Harry showed them the fields and crops that were being tended to magically. He showed him the vault next, knowing the last two places they visit would be where they stopped to work. Bruce was dumbfounded by the enormous wealth and the artwork, pointing out some of these things could be mounted in his home. He could just claim they were replicas. Harry liked the idea. Next, Harry showed them the greenhouses. Fawkes loved being surrounded by all the magical plants, and let out a happy song, Harry getting the impression that Fawkes was proud of him for what he had accomplished. They spent an hour there, Harry showing him some of the simpler plants, how to tend to them and harvest from them without damaging the plants. Having some ingredients in hand, they left. After that, he pointed out the other doors with greenhouses, with more and more dangerous plants. He warned him not to go in them yet, and never without permission, since some of them were in stasis. Once they reached the potions lab, Bruce started getting more excited. Seeing vials of clearly marked potions that Harry had made and preserved over the years, he couldn't help himself. He started looking through them and asking questions, while Harry set up a workstation for Bruce and himself, intending on using the ingredients they had just gathered to make a potion. Harry was certain Bruce would want to know first. It was 2 hours later when Bruce had completed his first, and quite successful batch of calming draft. Harry congratulated him, and seeing his happy smile gave him the plants he would need to make his own from now on. There was a small greenhouse set aside out back for Bruce's private use. It was obviously much larger inside. He decided once they exited the trunk to immediately go investigate and plant his new possessions. He was planning on cultivating an entire section dedicated to these ingredients. Harry was happy for him. That night they ate dinner in the communal kitchen, Bruce having popped into the trunk again to go fetch some herbs and spices he'd noticed and made them a foreign dish he had picked up on his travels. Harry instantly decided that Bruce was now the cook. Bruce just smiled and accepted, taking it as a compliment. The next day found Harry hard at work brewing the first of the potions he would need for Tony, the Skelligro potion. He had given Bruce a book containing the summary and explanation of how they worked the previous night. When he found that Bruce reminded him of things as they went, he was reminded that he was in the presence of a genius. So he handed over the reins to Bruce, much to his shock. He still stayed by his side, explaining cutting techniques, and explaining why certain stirs in certain directions would make a difference in the end result. Bruce drank the information in, seemingly a bottomless pit that craved knowledge. This was working out better than Harry had anticipated. He'd have to give Bruce the book on Wolfsbane potions so that he could start taking the potion apart and seeing where substitutions were possible. He had already asked about obtaining more mundane ingredients to start experimenting on. If he could build up a font of knowledge about what plants contained what qualities, when put in potions, he'd be one step closer to gaining a mastery in this field. There was a break in the brewing where the potion needed to simmer untouched for 3 hours. Harry decided to take Bruce for a walk. Fawkes didn't mind staying in backup plan. He'd either visit some of Harry's crops to feed himself, or watch Hogwarts from his perch, which Harry had created for him. He sometimes even went to go sun himself in the vegetable garden watching the chickens as they lived out their lives in their self-sustained ecosystem. They exited the property and Bruce suddenly looked confused. "Where did we just come from, Harry?" "It's a Fidelius, Bruce. Just like the trunk," Harry informed him. He then whispered the secret in his ear. Seeing Bruce's eyes widen, for him the property had suddenly shifted into view out of nothing. He said, "The third most secure place on the whole planet." "Really, what are the other two?" Bruce asked, not thinking he'd get the answer. "Number 2 is a secret that I'm not allowed to tell you, sorry. Contract protected information. The most secure place on this planet, however, you've already been, my trunk," Harry said. "That makes sense," Bruce conceded. "Wait, does that mean I'm in on one of the biggest secrets on the planet?" "Yes, it does, Bruce. Now you know why the contract was needed," Harry said. Bruce just nodded once, and they started walking down the road. Suddenly Bruce froze up when he saw a traffic camera. He knew the army were connected to those. "Camera, I can't be here." Bruce started turning back to the house before Harry could stop him. "Bruce, stop!" He reached out and grabbed his arm. "Look." Harry pointed at a car window. Bruce looked and didn't recognize the person looking back at him. The features were still somewhat his, but his eyes were blue, his jawline different, his nose more slender and his hair dirty blonde. "When did you do that?" Bruce asked, still looking at the somewhat handsome face looking back at him. "Before we left home," Harry replied. "Why didn't you say anything?" Bruce said. "I probably should have, but I kind of forgot with the Fidelius thing. I see through my own glamours, so I forgot that you look different to other people," Harry said. "To err is human," Bruce quoted, taking a moment to calm down. They started off down the road again, having a conversation about potions and how to create counters before testing potions. Harry sharing some anecdotes about the twins' canary creams. Years later, Harry had gotten some of their secrets from them. Peruvian darkness powder being one of them. The other was the canary creams. So there I was, about to be trampled on, having just escaped the twins' trap when Hagrid picks me up, trying to protect me from the crowd. He then checked me out and threw me, seeing nothing wrong with my wings, Harry was saying. "Really?" Bruce was enthralled. Life and death situations seemed to happen to Harry when people were just playing. The wizarding world sounded crazy but fun. "Yeah, really, just before I landed I turned back to myself and got knocked unconscious. And that's how my naked picture ended up on the front page of the Daily Prophet." Harry finished his cautionary tale. "So you're saying that because they forgot to add one ingredient, you forgot who you were and shrunk out of your clothes, leaving you naked when you reverted? That's insane. Couldn't they test it on a subject who was willing and somehow contained?" Bruce asked. By that point, nobody trusted them. They were mischievous and tended to use their fellow students as test subjects, without their knowledge. They used all their gained knowledge to start a joke shop, and were quite the success before everything went to hell in a handbasket. Harry said. "They sound certifiable," Bruce said. "To each their own," Harry said non-committally. They reached the local farmer's market and Harry picked up some fresh fruit, while Bruce was getting some advice on where to procure certain herbs and plants. He was looking for things that had similar properties to things he had read about in the books. Some mundane plants that helped act as binding agents and solvents between different stages of the brewing processes as well. If Bruce had anything to do with it, he'd have a list of anything that has magical usefulness by the end of the year. Harry wouldn't stop him, but suspected that at some point he'd have to expand on Bruce's greenhouse, or put a secondary one in. By the time they were on their way back, loaded down with multiple bags of seeds, bulbs and plants, Harry's book started vibrating. He put down a couple of bags so he could use his hand to retrieve the book. He excused himself from Bruce for a moment in case it was classified and opened it to see the mirror active. "Good afternoon, Agent Coulson. How can I help?" Harry asked. "I'm calling to thank you for getting me that footage, Agent Potter," Coulson said with a smile. "I missed it. Damn, I knew I forgot something. I'll probably have to get there soon, before he starts taking his anger out on those around him." Harry said he was moving back to Bruce already at this point. "I should be available to do so in the next 2 hours or so," he said, looking at Bruce for confirmation, who nodded. "If you could get in contact with him and tell him I'll be there tomorrow though, I bet you'll get more footage out of it," Harry said with a completely straight face. Coulson smiled. "I'll make sure he gets the message. Thanks, Agent Potter, that will be all." "Wait, I'll be taking the coffee machine to Stark Tower when I go. Since I can't go by apparition, I was thinking of taking the carpet," Harry said. "I'll be there, but just out of curiosity, why take him a coffee machine?" Coulson asked. "To give him something to start on with the runes. Showing him that might get Bruce the equipment he needs sooner," Harry explained. "He's settled in then?" Coulson queried. Harry tilted the mirror to Bruce. "I am, thank you. Harry even helped me make my first couple of doses of calming draft. I should be able to keep myself stocked from now on, if I can get the plants he gave me to do so. To reproduce quickly enough," Bruce said with a smile. "Good, I'm sure the director will be pleased to hear you're making progress," Coulson said. "I'll see you in 2 hours." And with that, the mirror went inactive. "I was meaning to ask you about that. Any chance you can set me up with one of those mirrors? Probably the rest of the Avengers too. Would be useful to have an untraceable form of communication," Bruce asked as they continued walking. "I don't see why not. I should be able to have that ready by the time Thor and Loki leave." "Good idea, thanks," Harry said. "No problem, that's why you keep me around after all." Bruce smirked. He was becoming more open and friendly, probably a side effect of relative freedom. Harry would have to spend some time adding that glamour to an enchantment, which meant research, and he'd started loving the research. 2 hours later, they had gotten the potion to a point that it needed to be left at room temperature for a day. Harry was once again impressed with Bruce. He had improved in leaps and bounds, even coming up with some time-saving ideas on the fly. Apparently his past experiences were helping him here. Science and magic finally seemed like they could coexist, even if it was only in the mind of a genius. Coulson showed up in the basement, and Harry went to go fetch him. Only Harry knew the secret of the room, and Fury preferred it that way. Not only could nobody enter, but nobody knew where the doors were, in or out. He'd never felt so safe in his life. Harry had found him sleeping on the couch multiple times after he had had a rough day. Coulson was excited. You could tell by the way his smile almost reached his eyes. Harry had taken the coffee machine to the back door earlier. Bruce had homework. He was going to go through Harry's library and find out if there was a way to increase the flow of time in the greenhouse. Harry had never heard of such a thing, but that didn't mean something like that didn't exist. Maybe once Tony and Bruce had ancient runes down, he could get one or both of them into arithmancy. Spell creation would be easier with someone to work out the formulae. "You ready?" Harry asked Coulson as he conjured a carpet and replaced it with a magical one in his trunk. "I've been looking forward to this," Coulson said. "Well, don't be disappointed when it turns out to just be another form of transport," Harry warned. Coulson scoffed and got on the carpet and sat down. Harry conjured some cushions and a table again. Might as well have a drink while they were going to be sitting around for a while. He turned to Bruce. "Do me a favor," he asked. "You want me to check on the potion and ensure that it doesn't need any more powdered scare beetles in about 4 hours?" Bruce asked with a smile. "You got it. You'll be a master in under a month," Harry complimented. "Okay, we're off. Don't go off the property and say hello to Fox sometime. I don't like him sitting alone in his room like that," Harry asked. "Yes, Mom," Bruce joked. "You're a comedian," Harry said before casting some concealing charms that would have people ignore them if they're spotted. Then he slowly lifted off. One wave of his hand later and the wind stopped buffeting them. "Can you let the wind blow until it gets colder? That's supposed to be part of the experience," Coulson said. Harry cast some sticking charms on the cushions and did as Coulson asked. Who was he to argue? During the flight, Coulson told him about the new unit he was supposed to start leading soon. He'd be leaving the director's side. Harry was happy for him. It's not like he wouldn't see him around. They had a couple of drinks once it got too cold and Harry blocked the wind again. They toasted to Coulson's promotion and chatted about Harry's plans for his newly registered company. Apparently, S.H.I.E.L.D. had people on standby the moment market shares became available. Fury had insisted that they get first option to buy in. Harry didn't have a problem with that. Fury just wanted access to the goods and services they were planning on making available. When they reached their destination, Coulson was still happy he had come. I thought you said these were slow, he had said at some point. You never listen. I said brooms were faster, not carpets are slow. Once Harry cancelled the concealment charms, the door opened and out ran a very angry Tony. Fix it, he all but screamed. Harry saw Pepper walking out behind him, barely hiding a smile. Mr. Stark, I love what you've done with your hair, Coulson said. You said he'd only come tomorrow. Tony scowled. And your reaction was priceless. Thank you for the entertainment. I'm still considering putting it on the internet, Coulson said with a straight face. Tony was suddenly pale. It made for a strong contrast against Natasha's hair, currently growing out of his head. It was even styled the way she wore it. With his now clean-shaven face, it made for an odd sight. Harry just laughed and waved his hand, canceling the trigger on the layered spell. Tony's hair and facial hair returned to normal. He felt his face and head and sighed in relief. Then he turned on Coulson. You won't upload it. You enjoy having leverage too much. True, I'll keep it for when there's something I really want, Coulson said with a straight face. Tony then noticed the coffee machine and then next to it, the table. He immediately went to the table and picked up the 3/4 full bottle. You are going in my cabinet, he said to the fire whiskey. Hey, at least pour us a drink first, Harry said. Tony just scowled at him, but nodded. He had no right to take it, so a compromise was better than nothing. Harry hoped the effects would have Tony in a better mood. He walked inside and poured 4 drinks, but when he looked up, Coulson was already gone, having activated his portkey with a soft goodbye to Harry. Tony shrugged and poured Coulson's drink in with Harry, had been storing the carpet again and had apparated home and back again to get into his trunk. When he returned, he picked up the coffee machine and took it inside, placing it on the counter. What am I supposed to do with the relic? Tony asked, handing him one of the smaller drinks. Harry smiled and unobtrusively performed a switching spell with the contents of the glasses. When Tony went to take his, he scowled, but let it go. He had more than half a bottle, after all. To new hairstyles, Harry toasted, and Pepper, having gotten a drink from Tony, toasted with a smile on her face. Tony said nothing, but watched Pepper's reaction. She had taken a small sip, having heard all about fire whiskey from Tony. Tony tried the fire trick with partial success, but when he swallowed, he smiled anyway. Damn you, Harry. I can't even stay angry at you with this stuff. Don't look in a mirror then, Harry said, smiling. Pepper was trying and failing to hold in her chuckles. Tony looked around at the alcohol cabinet's reflective surface. He saw himself with Pepper's hair this time. Again, clean-shaven face. What did I ever do to you? He complained. Harry just lifted an eyebrow. Okay, fine. I'm sorry I posted that video of you on the internet. Okay? Immediately his hair turned back to normal. Damn, Harry swore. That was too quick. I never even got to see any of the others. What did you do, Harry? Pepper asked, once she had calmed down. I made it so whenever he said bad things about me, his hairstyle would change. Until he apologized, that is. Now he's spoiled all my fun. It was going to be Coulson next and then Fury, Harry said. Hopefully he's learned his lesson now, Pepper asked with a pointed stare. Yes, be more creative the next time I anger him. So it's worth it. Tony mumbled, taking another sip and smiling again. So what's with the coffee monstrosity? Feeling much calmer now that he knew his torment was over. Look at it more closely, Harry said. Tony did and at first saw nothing, until he spotted it. A set of runes, carved into its shell in a couple of places. You've ruined it. What's the runes do? Harry reached into his pocket, took out the 3rd book Tony had been looking forward to, inadvertently causing his dilemma earlier today, when he swore at the wizard for making him promise to Pepper not to experiment, and handed him the book. This 3rd book marked the beginning of his ability to practice what he had been studying. You tell me, Harry said with a smug smile. Tony reached over the counter and grabbed the book. Finally, my reign of terror begins. Wahahaha. Is that a good idea? Pepper asked dubiously. As long as he stays within the guidelines mentioned in the first 3 books, he'll now be able to start understanding what he's doing, Harry explained. For the really powerful stuff, he'll need me for now. To power the rune clusters, he will also need Hermione's research to start working on powering those himself, which he doesn't get until he's mastered all 5 books and their mastery texts. Harry said slightly smugly. Tony deflated for a second, before he smiled a predatory smile. I bet I can figure it out before then. If you must, Harry said shrugging. He then turned to Pepper. Pepper, can I offer you a room at my place when Tony destroys his tower? That won't be necessary, Harry. We have many houses. I could just move into one of them if he starts threatening my safety, she said mildly. Oh, come on, Tony whined. A couple of days later, here you are, Harry said, handing a mirror to Thor. He had already given each of the other Avengers theirs. This should allow you to communicate with us from just about anywhere. Thank you, friend Harry, Thor said. And you are sure you cannot give Jane one without one of those contracts? Harry had offered her one, but she did not like the thought of something holding that much power over her. I'm afraid that's the rules. My secrets are too important, and must be kept from the general public. Anyone finding out she has some of them would put her in great danger. I would not want to place her in harm's way. Harry assured. I understand. I would have preferred her have one of these, but I can understand your reasoning. That does not mean I have to like it, but I can respect yours and her wishes. Both. Thor intoned sadly. So, you guys ready to face the Allfather? Harry asked, changing the subject. The Avengers were all there, all with pouches around their necks. Tony's newly restored chest now capable of having such an item. At first he had refused to wear it, until Harry had taken it and hung it on a wall, and Natasha fired several shots into it with her gun. The wall didn't even have a scratch. Tony's tune changed instantly. He was now trying to get Harry to make Pepper one as well. Speaking of Natasha, she seemed to be on leave and had been asking to see him. Coulson had contacted him for her, and they had met up once or twice at Stark Tower. She was first to receive a pouch and mirror. She had not brought up the recording, but her smile seemed a bit more friendly than teasing these days. They had an appointment later today to take Harry's carpet to Malibu from New York, where they would be taken to Harry's home before they went out for dinner on the no longer dreaded double date. They had all greeted Thor, and Harry was the last one, having only completed his mirror earlier that day, to give it to him now. Harry was slapping Thor on the shoulder, saying he hoped that Odin liked his gift, a bottle of fire whiskey, when Loki had a gleam in his eye. He turned the device in his hand and activated the transport while Harry was still too close. Oh shh, was all that was heard before all 3 of them were transported away. Harry finished arriving on the other side. Before him stood a tall, dark man with golden armor and the strangest eyes. Heimdall was looking at Harry. Hi, I'm sorry, would you excuse me for a second? Harry turned around and looked at Loki. You should not have done that. His hand moved in Loki's direction. Loki, Prince of Asgard, trickster god of legend, was suddenly a turtle. Now I feel better. Long have I watched you, warrior wizard. Your exploits on Midgard speak well of your intent and skills. Odin, Allfather, has expressed an interest in meeting you as well, Heimdall said. My name is Heimdall. Thor has told you of me, I know. Thor just chuckled. You might as well come with me and spare me the temptation of keeping it for myself. And the fact that I'm now stuck in Asgard has neither of you worried, Harry said, suddenly realizing the perilous nature of his situation. He didn't know that Odin would allow him back to Earth using the Tesseract. The Allfather is not so unjust that he would punish you for the misdeeds of his wayward son, wizard. Heimdall said sincerely, a small smile on his face. Turning to Thor, he said, Make haste, though. When you made your plans to return this day, I informed your father, King Odin, as such. He awaits your arrival even now. Harry was startled by a feeling in one of the pockets of his dragonhide armor. He had elected to wear it in case any cameras found them in the park, and made the connection between him and the Avengers. Hurriedly, Harry took out his book only to see Tony's face in it. Oh, thanks, science. I was worried I wouldn't get the next book, Tony said. Harry knew he meant well, so ignored the insincere statement. I love you too, Tony, Harry joked. I have been told that I won't be stuck here, so I'll see what I can find out and call back in 2 hours if I'm not able to get back by then. Unfortunately, Prince Thor, Loki and I need to go. Apparently the Allfather is waiting and nobody keeps him waiting. Harry had been moving the book around to show the people he indicated. Wait, was that a turtle? Wait, was that Loki? Tony said, before Harry closed the book. Good to know that works, Harry exclaimed in relief. He picked up the turtle and activated his flight capabilities. Are we going? Harry asked, just slightly off the ground. Thor smiled, twirled his hammer, and took off in the direction of the royal citadel, with Harry following closely behind. Loki, on the other hand, was not so pleased. The turtle just wanted to eat and rest. Harry had thoroughly locked his mind in its form. He couldn't even counter the magic in this state. When they arrived at the gate, where armed guards stood by the sides of the doors, they were met by 3 men and a woman of exquisite beauty. They all looked strong and were dressed as warriors. Harry recognized them from their night of viewing memories and decided to greet them without being introduced. He handed the turtle to Thor and held out his hand to them one at a time. Volstagg, Fandral, Hogun, and you must be the lovely Lady Sif. My name is Harry Potter. It is my genuine pleasure to meet all of you. Thor speaks of you fondly and with respect. They stood there stunned until Volstagg, the biggest of the 3, stepped forward and asked, "And what is it that Prince Thor has told you?" "I assure you, most of what he said not true. I do not eat nearly as much. Fandral has some control around the ladies, and Hogun does more than grunt," he joked. "Your estimation of Lady Sif is quite accurate, however." Harry instantly liked the man. He was like Santa, but more deadly. He seemed to have a jovial spirit and a good solid sense of self. "Prince Thor has showed me memories of your battles, and I have seen for myself both your strength and valor. You have nothing to fear. I hold you in the greatest of regard." At this they all smiled, except for Sif, who had a calculating look. "Showed you memories, you say? That sounds like magic." She then turned to Thor. "Prince Thor, how certain are you that this person is not your brother Loki in disguise?" "What you say is true. It was indeed magic that helped me share my memories. But Harry Potter is one of my new comrades," Thor said. He held up the turtle. "This is Loki. Harry Potter is a wizard of greatest skill, and when Loki caused mischief to bring Harry here with us, I'm afraid he attracted the ire of a wizard. I would suggest you avoid that. Don't fear me. I am not so fickle as to harm another living being for simply inconveniencing me. The transformation will be removed, but not before we present Loki to his father. I dare say the trickster will be mortified to realize he had been so thoroughly thwarted and overpowered by someone he considers his lesser," Harry said with a wicked grin. Fandral looked at him appraisingly. "He speaks with the same silver tongue as Loki, but his words have no bite," he noted. "Well met, Harry of the Potters. We thank you for assisting our prince with his duty, and bringing back the lost prince," he finished with a bow. "It was no hardship, as your prince is a wonderful companion. But please, we must present ourselves to the king. I am told he is waiting." Harry apologized. "Yes, let us go see my father." Without waiting, Thor stepped forward, still holding the turtle, who had yet to leave his shell since Harry had first picked him up. They were allowed in, and Harry marveled at the beautifully decorated arched ceilings and ornaments. They were followed by the Warriors 3 and Sif. They reached the entrance to the throne room and waited to be announced. Once they were, the doors opened and Harry saw the throne upon which sat the king of Asgard, Odin Borson, Allfather. "Welcome back, my son," Odin exclaimed, a smile on his face at seeing his progeny return. "Were you successful in your mission?" He obviously knew, but wanted those present to hear for themselves. The throne room wasn't packed per se, but there were quite a few in attendance. Obviously they had been waiting. "Indeed, father, we were able to stop the invasion of the Chitauri on Midgard and have brought Loki and the Tesseract to you as you commanded," Thor intoned, taking a knee in front of his father. He held out the turtle with one hand and the Tesseract in the other. "What's this?" Odin asked, looking at the turtle. "It is Loki, father. He had thought to inconvenience one of my new companions by dragging them along when we made preparations to leave Midgard. My companion is a wizard of great strength, and he turned Loki into this creature," Thor said, a smile on his face. Odin then looked up and spotted Harry. "I can sense your power, wizard. You are more than you claim, it seems," Odin said with a knowing look. "But that is not for now. If you would, please return my son to his rightful form, so that we may get this unpleasantness out of the way." "Of course, Majesty." Harry walked closer, took the turtle from Thor's hand, placed him on the floor and cancelled the transformation. Loki reverted to his true form and lunged at Harry instantly. Harry locked him in place and turned him about to face his father. "Face your father and answer for your crimes," he said lowly. He kept the stream of magic up so Loki couldn't flush it from his system. He made sure that everyone could see his hand was up, holding him in place. Guards soon came in to secure Loki and the Tesseract, and Harry was able to step back to where he had been. They argued for a bit, and Loki was taken away. Harry felt bad for the would-be king. Loki had always lived in Thor's shadow, it seemed. Harry wondered if he had any friends of his own. "Come forth, wizard. Tell me your name so that I may greet you to my halls," Odin intoned. "Of course, Majesty. My name is Harry Potter," Harry said as he stepped forward and bowed deeply. "He has good manners for a Midgardian," the queen stated with a smile. "He is not strictly from Midgard, my queen. He has a power about him that is not just magic," Odin said. "What are you, Harry Potter?" he asked. "I am not certain, Majesty, but I can only assume you are referring to the powers assigned to me when I was chosen by a higher entity to bear its power," Harry said solemnly. Odin's intense eye never left Harry. "You are holding something back. Is there a term from where you come that describes one such as you?" Odin asked. "There is, your Majesty, but I am loath to speak it in front of so many. I have kept this knowledge to myself since I came to this reality. I cannot bear to have it spoken in the streets as children point and stare at me," Harry said with downcast eyes. "Is it so terrible that its mere utterance causes you shame?" Odin asked. "Father, please. If Harry wants to keep it from the people, maybe we can discuss this in private," Thor pleaded. "He is a good man. He has earned at least that." Odin seemed to think about it. "As you wish," he finally nodded at his son. "Harry Potter, please follow us to the family chamber, where we can speak of things freely," Odin said as he got up, looking now at the crowd of people. "We will return in a short while. You may begin the feast." As he said this, a band somewhere started playing and people started whispering. Odin led them out of the hall and into a smaller, more comfortable room, with benches, pillows, and couches. Harry unobtrusively cast cushioning charms on the seats, before they sat down. Frigga seemed shocked but pleased. Odin looked up and said, "So, what can you tell us?" Harry informed them of the world he came from, about being the only survivor and then of the Hallows. He told the tale in its entirety for the first time since entering this reality, mentioning his suspicion that he had stopped aging and his ability to summon the dead. "So the term for you is the Master of Death?" Odin asked, thinking he could understand the hesitation at saying the name. Death seldom had good connotations. "I believe so, Majesty," Harry said sadly. Remembering himself being the only survivor always saddened him. And then there was a burst of flame and Fawkes appeared and lightly landed on his shoulders, singing an angry tune that still lifted his spirit. He was being reprimanded for forgetting that he wasn't alone. "Oh, did I mention that Fawkes here recently decided to join me from my home universe?" Harry chuckled as he scratched the phoenix, and his spirits started soaring. "You have a phoenix?" Odin whispered in awe. "And it chose to follow you willingly?" "Well, yes. Is there another way to choose friends?" Harry asked, unconcerned. "May I see it?" Odin asked. Harry wanted to say that he could already see it, but thought better of it. Damn Tony for rubbing off on him. He is a free bird and goes where he wishes. I'll bring him to you and he can choose, if he wishes to come to you. "That is all I can promise, Majesty," he said. Trying to be respectful and reproaching at the same time was difficult. Harry walked over and lifted his other arm to the phoenix, who jumped to it. He offered said arm to Odin, who lifted his arm in return. The phoenix looked him straight in the eye for a moment, and then jumped across onto Odin's arm. His other hand reached up but hesitated, until Harry nodded, followed by Fawkes, and he pet the bird's magnificent plumage. "He's intelligent," Odin noted. "Well, yes, Majesty. He did follow my voice from an alternate reality, and appeared when he felt my despair." "Fawkes prefers to be scratched on the head," thought Harry said nonchalantly. The bird let out a soft song as he was being petted. One of contentment. "To judge you negatively after a phoenix has vouched for you would be the act of a fool. Welcome to Asgard, Harry Potter," Odin said sincerely. "Harry has asked me to deliver this to you, when he was still going to stay on Midgard," Thor said, delivering a bottle-shaped gift to the Allfather. Fawkes burst into flame and reappeared on Harry's shoulder to free Odin's hands. Odin looked shocked, but only for a moment. Then he looked sternly at Thor. Did you need to interrupt that moment? He asked exasperatedly, but took the gift and opened it anyway. What is this? Odin asked in interest. It is a magical drink from Harry's homeworld. It is infused with fire magic, and that of peace. It is quite strong too, when compared to other drink on Midgard. I really enjoyed it and knew you would, so I asked for a bottle. Thor explained, looking at the bottle himself. Then what you are saying is I should keep it for a special occasion, Odin said, moving it from hand to hand, watching as his son's head moved side to side. By all means, father. Perhaps the return of your son from a victory defending an entire planet will suffice, Thor said with some humor, as he finally broke his gaze from the bottle, watching his father's bemused expression. Perhaps, Odin said. Don't hold it as too precious, Majesty. I do intend to figure out how to make it at some point, but the way I keep on giving it away, I might run out of stock, so I'll ensure to keep you in mind if you find it to your liking. Harry explained. Very well. We shall leave what we have discussed in this room. With a Phoenix companion, nobody can argue that he has nefarious purposes, Odin said. That reminds me, if Fawkes can get here, that means he can take me home, so if it's all the same to you, I'll just be on my way. Harry began. You will do no such thing. Frigga suddenly burst out. You have just arrived bringing gifts, and our sons. We welcomed you to our halls and you will stay so that I have the opportunity to have a conversation with you. Of course, Queen Frigga, Harry said, bowing. If I may please have a moment to update my companions on Midgard that is what I am doing, he asked. I am expected to take a couple of friends for a ride on my magic carpet in about an hour and a half. Will that work for you? Much better than leaving now. Yes. Frigga replied sternly. After Harry informed them of the situation, they went back to the throne room, where it seemed a party was brewing. There were dancing couples, tables laden with foods of all sorts that Harry didn't recognize, but smelled delicious. He refused to spoil his appetite though. He followed Thor and seated himself near, but not next to the royal family, not knowing what was appropriate. Odin stood up and waited for quiet. Citizens of Asgard, I have come bearing good tidings. Our Prince Thor has, in his attempts to save Midgard, made a companion of great value. Where he is from, he was called Wizard. Our people would call him a sorcerer, or cider. He will be welcomed by you as one of us, as he is a warrior of great strength and repute, Odin said, broking no argument. I believe his tale as he is joined by his companion Phoenix, Fawkes, a creature of utter purity who would not align themselves with anyone that has ill intent. There were gasps among the occupants of the hall, people looking around to try and spot the man and Phoenix. Please rise, Harry Potter, and be known as our guest of honor. You have earned our hospitality, and we welcome you to Asgard. Harry wanted to go invisible, but knew he'd only offend his hosts if he did that. So in lieu of standing on his feet, he activated his armor to levitate him 6 feet into the air. There were more gasps and muttering, and then Fawkes flared his wings and let out a song of welcome and joy. Suddenly there was loud applause and cheering from around the hall. People banged their cups on their tables and people stared at the Phoenix, with some ladies examining Harry with hunger in their eyes. Harry allowed himself to float back to his seat, but Fawkes took off and flew around the hall, small embers flying behind him in his path as he sang the most beautiful song of hope and strength imaginable. Harry was soon joined by the warriors 3 and Sif. So, I hear you are a powerful wizard, Volstagg said sarcastically. Lies, all of them, Harry responded jokingly. There was silence until Volstagg roared with laughter, those around them soon following suit. You have wit. I always enjoy humor when I'm in my cups, he said, as he slapped Harry on the back hard enough to almost throw him off his chair. Tell me of the food of your world. Do you have anything as good as you can find on these tables? He said, pointing around, seemingly indicating the best food any world has to offer, which it very well might be, Harry thought. Not wanting to be outdone, he said, well, from what I've seen it is entirely possible that the food here is remarkably well prepared, and much more variable than you would find on my tables. However, there is one food I enjoy that I've yet to see. Midgard contains hundreds of cultures, and over the years they have created some marvelous dishes. One of them I can show you if you are interested. How would you do that if the food you are thinking of cannot be found here? Sif asked. Surely you can't just make it appear from thin air. Actually, I could, but it would not contain any nutrition as it disappears after a couple of hours. What I'm going to do is take ingredients from the tables you have here and combine them using magic to create the food I'm thinking of. With this, Harry pointed at a couple of items and summoned them onto the table in front of him. The best thing about this type of food is that you can modify it for flavor. What is your preference in food normally, Volstagg? Me, of course! Nothing quite sates my hunger like a big piece of meat, Volstagg enthused. Ignoring his inner Tony, Harry went about transfiguring the bread and tomatoes. Then he took the sausage he found and transfigured it to pepperoni. He then added some salami, which he transfigured from another cut of meat, and lastly crispy bacon bits. He then took a bit of cheese, had it grate itself over the food he already had, and held his hands over the whole bunch to bake it. Once the cheese was the right color, he removed his hands, pointed his fingers to cut the now finished pizza into 8 slices, and slid the whole thing over to Volstagg. Buon appetito, he said with as much of an Italian accent he could. Volstagg looked at the food and reached for a fork. Harry interrupted him. No, this is called finger food. You eat it with your hands. Like this. And Harry took a slice, folded it in half, put the point of it in his mouth, and bit it off. It wasn't bad, though he'd have to remember to spice it better next time. See? He asked around his mouthful. A light snack would probably not ruin his appetite later. Thor had noticed what Harry was doing and had walked over. Once Harry had finished his demonstration, he took a slice for himself and said thank you, and walked away. Volstagg followed suit and took his first bite. This is delicious. Hey, that's mine, he said as the other 3 each took a slice. Harry just smirked. Volstagg took the plate the rest of the pizza was on and escaped, before anyone else could eat any of his food. After finishing her slice, Sif spoke up. You may have just made a lifelong friend. Volstagg's heart might actually be in his stomach, she laughed. He'll be back in a couple of minutes demanding more, however, so you better be ready. Then I'll just distract him with this, Harry said as he conjured a glass jug, filled it with water and made butterbeer. Thor, having known this would happen at some point, was instantly there, picked up the jug and said thank you, and was off again to go give his mother a glass of the butterbeer. Harry just laughed and repeated the process, telling the 3 remaining people at the table to help themselves after pouring himself a cup. When Volstagg came back loaded down with more ingredients for pizza, Harry obliged him and made 3. This time he remembered the extra spices and changed the variation some. There was a vegetarian, a Hawaiian, and meaty pizza again. Thor once again showed up with 2 plates, and took a slice of each on both plates. Apparently Frigga was interested in the food, having tasted the butterbeer. The other was for his father, who was curious himself. Sif seemed to enjoy the Hawaiian and Fandral the vegetarian. Strangely, Hogan, apparently having decided that he liked the meat pizza, stuck with it. Volstagg soon disappeared with the rest, sounding injured that people kept stealing his food, having taken 2 cups of butterbeer with him. So the legends of him were true. Harry was summoned to the head table and asked to sit next to the Queen, so that they may converse. Harry politely accepted the seat, and they were soon chatting about the food and drink, spices and processes involved with making them normally. Why do you say you dislike cooking, when you are obviously a great cook? Frigga asked, having tasted some of the spices he had mentioned, but didn't know. Harry had created them for her, warning that they were only temporary. My childhood affected my love of the craft, but magic makes everything easier. You still end up consuming what the base ingredients were. But if you don't have a lot, you sometimes need to change things up a little. My farms produced eggs and wheat, and I was able to salvage some other ingredients. Cheese was hard to come by after a while, so I had to make it from other ingredients. At least it lasted long enough to enjoy the food. Harry explained. And the butterbeer, she asked. It was once my favorite drink, so I took the time to perfect transfiguring it, Harry replied. Well, I quite enjoy this beverage. Thor told me that it returns to water once consumed, which is beneficial. I think the Warriors 3 will discover soon that they don't need to go to bed as drunk as they normally tend to, she said. I may have forgotten to tell them that as well. They've been drinking a lot of water tonight, and are none the wiser, Harry snickered. Next to Frigga sat Odin enjoying another glass of fire whiskey. He seemed very pleased with it, and made eye contact with Harry and raised his glass. Thor was right, this is quite enjoyable. You will have to come back with more once you have perfected the process. I have not felt so light in decades, he complimented. It is my pleasure, Majesty, Harry returned. Is it just my imagination, my queen, or is our wizard friend attracting quite a few gazes from the maidens in attendance? I do believe you are correct, husband. Harry here seems to have gained the attention of quite a few maidens, and some of the not-so-virtuous ones. Apparently Harry was getting some spoken-for ladies' attention as well. Their significant others were jealously scowling at Harry. Do I need to be worried? Harry asked. Not as long as you don't act on their advances. Admiration is not frowned upon. Using said admiration to your advantage would be, Frigga warned, with a smile. You seem to have caught the eye of our dear Lady Sif as well, it seems, she said with a raised eyebrow, looking sideways at him. Harry got a bad feeling. He cast a tempest and said, Would you look at the time? I am due back home in 5 minutes. You will not escape this conversation so easily. My aspects are love and marriage. I always look out for the ladies in my circles. They will want to know about your skills and virtues. What will I say when they hear you are not yet attached? Powerful and for all intents and purposes one of the prince's inner circle of friends. Not to mention your culinary skills, Frigga asked, a sly smile on her face. With just that you are already one of the most eligible bachelors currently around. Maidens will weep themselves to sleep when they find out you have no interest in them. Aren't your aspects those of beauty, love, and marriage? Harry tried to divert the conversation. Flattery will not get you out of this conversation either, Harry, Frigga countered. It was worth a try, Harry sighed. To be honest, I've only been in this reality a little over 6 months. I have not made any plans for that kind of companionship in any way. I am also quite dense when it comes to the fairer sex. I am told. I had not realized Lady Sif saw me in that way. She just seemed friendly and companionable since we arrived at the feast, he said. Then you don't know the lady well enough. She is normally cold to strangers. She once had her eye on Thor, but was sorely disappointed when he fell for the mortal, Jane, of Midgard. Frigga sighed. That is a relationship I'm afraid will not last. What do you mean? Harry asked, worried for his friend. Besides our different lifespans, she is a woman of intellect. Far more so than Thor, I'm afraid. She will one day find a contemporary of hers, and make a connection Thor could never hope to offer her. You, on the other hand, will probably live for thousands of years. You could find a companion here that would last you all of your years, Frigga said with a smile. Could I have some time to think about it? Harry asked, hoping that he could end the conversation, at least for now. Time is one thing you have plenty of. Please consider it at your leisure. We Asgardians are a patient people. She smiled. But I will not give up on you. One day you may enrich Asgard with your presence in a more permanent way. Thank you, Harry said, not sure how to respond to that. I think our time is up. Thank you for your conversation. It was quite refreshing. I'll hold you to your promise for those cookbooks, though. It seems I have many recipes yet to discover from your world that I do not possess. Harry got up and bowed to Odin and then Frigga. Thank you for the honor you have shown me. It was a privilege to feast and converse with you. The honor is ours. You have brought with you a ray of light which we will welcome seeing again. At this Odin looked up at the phoenix. The phoenix is welcome too. Odin smiled. Did he just make a joke? Fire whiskey seemed to do him some good, if the smile on Frigga's face was anything to go by. Harry would have to start working on the formula and enchantments for fire whiskey soon. Fawkes, he called up and the phoenix floated down to him and landed on his shoulder. He bid them farewell and Fawkes flashed them to Stark Tower. Harry arrived on the helicopter pad at Stark Tower, where Fawkes had first appeared. He communicated with his avian familiar to find out how he was doing, but strangely Fawkes felt like he could travel to Asgard and back easily without much effort. Useful, he said. What's useful? Natasha said as she walked up to him. Apparently they had been on the lookout. She was wearing a summer dress with heeled sandals and simple jewelry. She looked good. Fawkes tells me that traveling to Asgard and back doesn't take a lot of effort. I had thought it would take an astronomical amount of power, even just to navigate, Harry said. Fawkes chirped in his ear again. Oh, that makes sense. Before Natasha could ask, he said. Fawkes says that he followed the mirror's energy from here to there, the first time. Now he can just retrace his own path. I think it's because he bonded with me. My magic is now something he can sense and follow. That is useful, she said. Come on, Tony wants to show you something before we leave. He sounded really excited. Oh boy, that's either really good or really bad, Harry said. following her back into the penthouse. He didn't even check out her behind. Not even twice. "Harry," Tony greeted him. "Come, I have to show you this." "Hi, Tony. What have you done now?" Harry asked, slightly apprehensive. "Hi, Harry? How was Asgard?" Pepper asked. "It is beautiful. I can show you the memory sometime," Harry said. "Do you know what Tony's been up to?" "I do, but I won't spoil it for you," Pepper said. They followed Tony to his lab and he went to a console. "Stay behind the line there and look at that stretch of wall," he said, pointing. They did and waited. Tony sat there typing things in and went to stand with them. "Jarvis, activate the program." There was the sound of a machine powering up and a laser started moving over the wall from the other side of the lab. It was going left to right, skipping over certain parts as it went. Where it went, slowly glowing lines started appearing in all different colors. They watched as the laser did what it had been programmed to do. When it was done, there was a message in the wall: "Light runes are my bitch." "How did you do that?" Harry asked in wonder, walking up to the wall. He could only see little pinpricks of light, but nothing else. "The laser can draw microscopic runes, so small you can't even see them with the naked eye. Each dot you see is a whole rune word for one color," Tony said proudly. "This is amazing, Tony. Do you know what this means?" Harry asked. "Yes. I can now inscribe runes so small on electronic parts, to negate magical effects on every component, using the rune words you had on the coffee machine," Tony said. He reached into a pocket and pulled out a phone. First ever magic immune cell phone. He tossed it to Harry. "That's yours. Now you can join the 21st century. Nice rune combination, by the way. I just added one rune to stabilize the word. No. It means no using your hands for complicated inscriptions that can fail if you make a mistake. You can even have the laser inscribe runes remotely, making it completely safe," Harry enthused. "What rune did you use, by the way, to stabilize the word?" Harry asked, interested. They started discussing the runes as they walked back to the lounge. When they got there, Harry reached into his pocket and took out 3 more books. "It seems I underestimated you. Please be careful, but I can see you know what you are doing, so I'll trust you with this." Tony was instantly on the books, and Pepper had to physically drag him away. "No, Tony, we're going on a magic carpet ride and having a nice day away. You can play with your runes later." "But Pepper, can't I at least take one with me?" Tony was losing the war. He scowled at Harry. "You did that on purpose, didn't you?" "Actually no, but I should have." Harry smiled cheekily. "Come on, Harry, I want to start our picnic," Natasha said. She was carrying a large picnic basket, which Harry took from her. They went outside and Harry got the carpet out. In a short while they were lifting up. "Okay, here we go. Harry strongly suggests you have fun and don't worry, we have all the necessary charms in place and we're blocked from most of the wind." Coulson said wind was part of the experience, so I'm allowing a bit through, Harry announced. They were soon comfortable drinking wine and eating snacks, while lying back and enjoying a view few others have ever experienced, in this world at least. "How much trouble would it be for you to get me one of these?" Tony asked. "Easy. I've figured out the charms and enchantments. The problem you will have is operating it. At this point only magical people can control them," Harry said apologetically. "How do you control it?" Pepper asked. "I haven't heard you tell the carpet to fly in a direction or point or anything." "Intent. Magic is all about intent. I want it to fly us at a certain height at a certain speed in a certain direction or to a specific location, and it does," Harry said. "I'll need to see if I can make runes that will emulate intent one day." Tony mused. "What's the max speed on this thing anyway?" he asked. "I don't know. I haven't asked it to go at its max speed yet. Want to try it?" Harry asked. "Of course! Open her up. Let's see what this baby can do." Strangely, it was Natasha that asked for more speed. "Okay, hold on." It was a figure of speech. The carpet's enchantments ensured that its occupants were safe and didn't fall off. Slowly their speed increased and Harry had to block the wind completely. "That's it, I think," Harry said when they stopped accelerating. "How fast are we going?" Natasha asked, looking at the ground below them fly by. Tony looked over the side and calculated in his head. "We're going at about 100 mph. We're going supersonic, almost twice the speed of sound," Tony exclaimed enthusiastically. "That explains it then. I had to block the wind entirely. That's faster than it's supposed to go, though. There's definitely something in your world affecting magic, Harry said, thoughtful. And you can just make these? Natasha asked. Well, yes, I suppose I could. I really want to try my broom now. It used to go more than twice as fast as the carpet, Harry said. Can you take me with you? Natasha asked sweetly, touching his arm and batting her eyelashes. Natalie, are you asking me to take you for a ride? Just the two of us, alone? Harry smirked at her, leaning closer to her. She didn't bat an eye. Are you sure you can handle that? She asked, moving closer as well, not backing down. Suddenly there was a bump and Harry fell forward, their lips making contact. He looked at her for a second and then quickly withdrew. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. He was blushing heavily, looking anywhere but her face. Pepper spoke up, a victorious look on her face. What were you saying about the carpet working on intent? Harry looked down and covered his face in embarrassment. Natasha, also smiling, spoke up. I thought you didn't put out until the third date. Tony was laughing. This was priceless. Harry had talked himself into a corner. Why are you suddenly so red, Harry? Oh, shut up. You guys suck, Harry complained. I think it's time you two talked, Pepper said suddenly. Harry, is there a way for you to block sounds from this side of the carpet? I could, Harry started. Do it, Pepper said, sternly. Harry complied. When Tony said something, Harry couldn't hear it. Suddenly, Pepper was making out with Tony, probably trying to give them some privacy. He turned to Natasha. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to. Why? Natasha asked. I don't know. Harry shrugged and rubbed at the back of his neck. I didn't want to take advantage, I guess. What do you mean, take advantage? She asked with a straight face. Well, that thing I did. I didn't want you to feel indebted to me. I didn't do it for that, and I noticed your attitude towards me changed right after that, Harry said. Harry, let me explain something to you. You cannot take advantage of me. I wouldn't allow it. What you did for me took a lot of guts, and you took into consideration my feelings. You even set it up so I could have an hour to finish what they started so long ago, she said sadly. So, I might be indebted to you, but you are not taking advantage. As she said this, she leaned into him again and kissed him passionately. The world seemed to disappear and he was alone with Natasha. When she broke the kiss, he was breathless. Thank you, he said softly, after a moment. For what? She asked, still only inches from him. For seeing me for me. Not the man who hunted down and strung up 12 men for the slaughter, Harry explained. Along with so many others, he finished in his head. Then I need to thank you as well, for not seeing me as the monster those men tried to make me into, she said, having similar thoughts to Harry. They leaned in again and kissed softly this time. Harry's hand went to her face and cupped it, feeling her soft curls in his hand, the feel of her skin under his thumb. When they broke the kiss this time, something had changed. Harry could see an emotion in her eyes he had never seen there before. There was a hunger. Harry quickly pulled himself together and straightened out. Smiling at her again, he said, You are dangerous, Natasha, my dear. She smiled back. That's the first time you've said my name. Harry looked up and in the direction they were flying. Yes, it was. Harry canceled the silencing with a visible wave of his hand, and Natasha knew he had done it to control himself. She was fine with that. Suddenly there was a chirp from behind her and she looked up to see Fawkes looking intently at Harry. What did Fawkes just say? Harry considered it for a moment and decided to tell her. He asked if we were mates now. Oh, and what did you say back? Natasha asked. I didn't say anything, Harry lied. He thought Natasha knew it by the smirk she gave him. He's lying, Tony interjected. Harry had forgotten for a moment that Tony and Pepper were there and could now hear them again. He looked over at them to scowl, but Pepper seemed genuinely happy. Now it's a real double date, she exclaimed. Fawkes let out a cheeky chirp and everyone was hit by a feeling of lust. No, Fawkes, don't even suggest it. Harry was blushing profusely again. Did he just ask if we were going to mate? Natasha asked. Something like that, Harry said, refusing to make eye contact. They made it to Malibu in record time, sipping wine and chatting. Harry had warned them to close their eyes when they arrived at his house. He'd give them the secret later. It's not like they could tell anyone. They would need a contract for backup plan though. Its contents was still something he needed to protect. He took them on a tour and Tony's eyes bulged when Harry told them of the expansion charms. That's awesome. You can buy a shack and live in a palace. Tony started looking around. Where's the TV? For that matter, where are the lights? The expansion charms can't multiply space that far. There are limits before the spell breaks down, unless you have a pocket dimension sustained by runes. That is, Harry said slyly. As for the technology, magical homes can't have them. Too much to interfere with. As for lights, Harry made the room they were in light up with a command. You have one? Tony asked suddenly off the subject of technology. You said you could make one, you never said you had one. I know, there are some secrets I have to keep protected, even from you. There is a way that I could share more though. Here Harry produced the contracts he had prepared for them. These are magically binding contracts. After explaining the process and doing a demonstration again, he was surprised to note Tony signing them first. What? Did you think I didn't note this protects our future copyrighted products? This is a very useful tool, Harry. I wonder, could you set up something like this for me? Tony said, I'm afraid at least one party of the contract has to be magical. Harry apologized. Natasha frowned but signed as well just after Pepper. Harry produced a new pouch and needle, and handed it to Tony, who knew what to do. While he was sorting out Pepper with her very own bag of holding, Harry was testing the phone by apparating with it. It didn't affect it at all. He was worried it would be left behind. He turned to Natasha, handing her the phone. Could you please give me your number? It would be the first one I have, Harry asked with a smile. Actually, my personal number is already in there, Tony said. That's not the same, Tony. This is a first for Harry. Pepper interjected. Thanks, Pepper, Harry said. He then turned to Natasha and took his phone back. I might need some help figuring the phone out as well. Maybe we could spend some time later and you can show me how to send pictures and stuff, Harry asked. I think I'd like that. I'll send you a picture later so you can see if you can open it. Natasha smirked. Harry wasn't certain what the smirk was about. Natasha liked that about him. In some ways he was so innocent. In others he was as drenched in the darkness as her. Harry led them into the trunk. He told first Natasha and Pepper the secret, enjoying the look that Tony sent him as Pepper tried to tell him about the door, but couldn't. He then had them walk through it. From Tony's perspective, they just seemed to cease to exist as they walked to a wall. Harry didn't keep him in suspense long but had fun delaying. When they entered, Harry showed them his old room first, and they found Fawkes on his perch, looking contentedly at Hogwarts. Don't get me wrong, this is an amazing illusion, but come on, Hogwarts. Really? What a stupid name. Tony was saying. I'm going to pretend you didn't just insult the place that gave me some of my happiest memories. But at least, I do understand. Wizards have this need to give things weird names. Some of them were so steeped in the culture they wouldn't understand logic if you explained it to them, Harry said. When she spotted the tentacle, Natasha only cocked her head to the side and asked, Did you have a kraken in your lake or did you add that tentacle for effect? Kraken? I don't know about that, but we had a giant squid. He was actually a friendly sort. Kept helping students that fell in. The merfolk weren't quite as nice, Harry replied. Merfolk? As in mermaids? Pepper asked with wonder. Yes, kind of. They didn't look like you're imagining. Remind me to show you the memories of the first two Triwizard tasks. Harry said. The third one was not so bad. Until the cemetery, if they insisted he could do that one as well. Up until he touched the cup. Harry showed them the library, and was saddened that the Monster Book of Monsters was now a permanent guest in Bruce's place. Sometimes he'd sit there stroking its spine while he read. Harry didn't fully understand it, but suspected it had something to do with his inner monster. It was also the closest thing Harry had to a monster from his home, besides the precious few ingredients he still had, and used sparingly. Next was his garden, then the first greenhouse, then the vault. He'd saved the potions lab for last. Tony was for once dumbstruck, mouth hanging open in awe at the amount of gold and precious items. Is this real? Pepper asked, going to some of the art Harry had saved. Yes, but it's... Harry started. From your world. Yes, I know, but look at this. She was looking at one of the portraits. This one was lost in a fire. Nobody knows where that one is. This is one of the earlier works, but could still be shown in art museums. She mentioned as she walked around looking at different items. You've got a treasure trove of lost art. Wow, I didn't even know, Harry said. He supposed if she wanted he could send these along with her. He started shrinking the ones she had pointed out. Anything else? He said, holding them out to her. What do I do with them? She asked. We have to be careful they can't be handled incorrectly. Just put them in your pouch one at a time. They are all preserved magically anyway. You'll have to remember what they look like to retrieve them though. Harry explained and she started doing just that. Point out the ones that I can hang and claim are fakes. Please? They went about gathering art and things Harry thought was beautiful to put in his house at a later stage. You weren't kidding about the gold. Tony finally spoke up. If you are interested, we could consider using some of this for circuitry. Gold is expensive, but makes for the best conduction. If you want, we'll just try sticking with the bars for now though. The coins are from my family vault. I'd like to keep them, Harry responded. Tony started looking around and found something he didn't recognize. Harry, what's this? He said, holding up a bar of unknown metal. I think it's adamantite or something like that, Harry replied. What? That's supposed to be one of the ingredients for adamantium, the toughest metal known to man, supposedly indestructible, Tony exclaimed. Really, where I'm from, it's a magically conductive metal. Rare and expensive to create, but there is a process to create it somewhere in the library, Harry thought. Maybe we can look it up sometime. That would be a very good idea. Why do you say it's expensive to create? We only find it in meteors here, Tony asked, a sudden gleam in his eyes. I think it uses actual gold. I don't know the process, but you only get a little bit of the metal and all the gold is lost, Harry said. We'll have to look into it. If we can find out how exactly it works, we may be able to change the process and have less of a loss. Tony was thinking it was probably something like removing bonds of the gold's atomic structure, dangerous at best. They'd have to set up a safe space to test it. Harry didn't know it yet, but this discovery would later be the start of Bruce's move from potions master to alchemist. Okay, on to the last room, Harry decided. They went back to the potions lab, and as Harry expected, Bruce was there brewing. Harry didn't even know what he was doing anymore. It had been only a couple of days, and Bruce had started going into advanced potions that Harry's stores had excesses of ingredients for. Hey there, Bruce. I've brought guests, Harry said. Bruce greeted the guests, and him and Tony started talking about what he was doing. Harry took Natasha and Pepper around the room, pointing out his rarer ingredients, and those of magical creatures. Ashwinder eggshells? Pepper asked. Ashwinders are fiery magical serpents. They are born from magical fires. Harry was suddenly excited. Bruce, I just got an idea, he yelled over to Bruce. Is it a dangerous one? Bruce asked with a smirk. Well, yes, but also potentially useful to us. Pepper was asking about Ashwinders, and I remembered that they are born randomly from magical fires. If we had a controlled environment, we might be able to make our own magical animals. Harry enthused. That would be amazing. Bruce was suddenly on board. There are so many potions that simply will not work without magical animal ingredients. If we could produce a breeding pair, we might be able to bring magical animals back from extinction. This was a dream come true for Bruce. So much he still could learn and do. Do you know of any other magical creatures you could make? Only one other that I can think of, and it is potentially a bad idea. Harry said apologetically. Why, what is it? Bruce asked, confused. The king of the snakes, a basilisk, Harry said. Oh yeah, that might be a bad idea after all, Bruce said. Why is it a bad idea? Natasha asked. Basilisks kill with eye contact, and their venom is incurable, and kills almost instantly. Not unless you have a phoenix on hand, Harry said. Useful against an enemy though, Natasha said with a calculating look in her eye. Could one be controlled? Well, I do possess the ability to talk to and control snakes, but it is still a danger to anyone who accidentally sees its eyes. Even only a reflection of it would petrify a person. To the point of suspending them indefinitely unless you can make mandrake potion, Harry said. Harry? You do have a magic immune camera on you right now. If you could take a picture of a basilisk's eye, couldn't you use that to petrify people? Enemies, for example, or those who are in need of urgent medical attention? Tony asked, a thoughtful look in his eye. That's not a bad idea, actually, Harry said, but one I'm not willing to risk just yet. We can work on another form of instant suspension for medical use though. One that does not need the use of a magic potion to remove. That would at least help in those situations, right? Harry asked. Fair enough, Tony said. Did I just hear you say Harry had a magic immune camera? Bruce asked. Oh, right. Thanks for reminding me. Tony said as he fished another phone from his pocket and gave it to Bruce. Both your phones has my direct number and is encrypted, so nobody can trace your calls. Thanks, Bruce said humbly. Then he joked, now I just need a magic immune electron microscope. He laughed. When do you need it? Tony deadpanned. You can do that? Bruce asked. Harry set me up with enough knowledge and I brought it into the 21st century. I can make pretty much anything magic immune. Stark Industries and Potter Innovations, patented technology, completely radiation and EMP immune. Useful side effect. Tony said brightly. Bruce suddenly had a gleam in his eyes. So you can set me up with a computer and electricity? He asked. Sure. I'll start on that and send the bill to Harry. From what I understand, he's been working a high-paying job for months and used very little of his earnings. Tony said, he's also told me of a possibility for creating free electricity. He looked at Harry questioningly. Actually, Tony, I've been looking into buying an island. I need to have the space for future plans. Fields and greenhouses, labs and power stations. That is going to take more money than I have available, Harry said apologetically. As for the generator, I was going to ask you about that. There is a rune cluster, which causes anything above it to levitate. Modify that, and it will send it flying. Does that give you any ideas? Tony thought about it for a second. He really loved a challenge. Then it clicked. Perpetual motion. Rotation on demand connected to a dynamo. Tony exclaimed excitedly. This will be a game changer. Not as vast a power source as my arc reactor, but consistent and cheap. I can help out with the money. Pepper entered the conversation. Your art collection will be worth hundreds of millions. You won't need to worry once I've set up an auction with the right people. She finished brightly, then frowned. If you'll allow me to handle it. Harry looked at Tony. Don't look at me. She loves art and stuff. If she can handle it and wants to, I say let her. Tony said. He was still thinking of the applications for the perpetual motion generator, or PMG as he was thinking of trademarking it. He was thinking of how to cut power. Stop motion, adding some form of gear function if it turned out torque was great enough. Then he started thinking of how he could modify a car for it. In other words, he was distracted for a whole minute. Genius that he was. Harry looked back at Pepper. That would be a great help, thank you. No thank you, thanks to this I'll get quite the reputation in the art world. I'll be invited to exclusive sales and auctions. I'll have an in at any museum as a valued contributor to the arts, she said excitedly. Harry cast a tempest instead of looking at his phone, not being used to having it yet, and jumped. Oh, damn, we're going to be late. They said goodbye to Bruce and as they hurried out of the lab, Natasha asked, what are Ashwinder eggs used for anyway? A couple of restorative potions and, off the top of my head, amortentia. Harry replied as he rushed. What is amortentia? Natasha asked. The name sounded derived from something she couldn't quite put her finger on. The most powerful love potion known to man, Harry replied. Natasha made the connection. Amor. For love. Love potion. Tony asked with a gleam in his eye. Tony. Pepper slapped him in the arm. Am I not enough for you? She sounded insulted. No, you're getting me wrong, Tony said. We could sell it to people whose marriages are failing. Kids never have to worry about mommy and daddy getting a divorce. Tony lied easily. I don't believe you, Pepper said, but let it go for now. I don't like love potions. It's a form of enslavement. The drinker becomes obsessed with the object of their desire. Harry shuddered. Has anyone ever given you a love potion? Natasha asked. A girl in school once tried getting me to eat chocolates with amortentia in it. Sent it to me on Valentine's Day. Fortunately for me, one of my best friends at the time was a glutton. He got into them first, and we were able to counter the effects when we realized, Harry said. I've been careful ever since. I was only caught once, but by that time my mental defenses were strong enough to realize what was happening, and I took a bezor. A bezor? Like, from the stomach of a goat? Tony asked incredulous. Best cure for poisons I ever heard of. It can also neutralize certain potions, where I'm from anyway. Harry said with a shrug. He had led them back to the backyard, where he brought forth the carpet again. Everybody got everything they need? Nobody answered, but everyone got on the carpet. Harry asked Pepper to point out where they were supposed to go, and soon they arrived at the restaurant. They had a private table overlooking the ocean, and most important, privacy. They were seated and the waitress, having smiled flirtatiously at Tony, took their drink orders. Deciding to stick with wine, Harry asked Natasha to order for them, since she had supplied the wine they had drunk on the carpet. "So, how do you like seafood?" Tony asked them. "I'm afraid the only seafood I really know is fish and chips, but I suspect that doesn't count," Harry asked. "You really are British, aren't you?" Tony asked. "As they come, I'm afraid." "So how do I choose?" Harry said, looking at the menu. "With your eyes," Tony said, with a mock smile. "Let me help you choose," Natasha said, leaning over to him to look at his menu. She started pointing out dishes and how they were prepared and served. Harry valiantly ignored the fact that he could see more cleavage than he was necessarily comfortable with. Natasha didn't act like she noticed. Harry ended up ordering some sort of steamed fish and a salad, which Natasha suggested. Tony started discussing possible applications of the PMG and asking Harry what book the information he would need was in. Harry refused to do so, reminding Tony of his promise to follow the books first. He still had his mastery books and Hermione's projects to work through, mentioning that her work would probably contain data that she had researched for years. She was a genius in his mind as well, and would probably have some devices that were stored in the boxes. In the meanwhile, Harry could help build a prototype with enchantments, so Tony would have something to play with and experiment on that wouldn't blow up in his face without the proper knowledge. Natasha and Pepper were busy discussing the art Harry had in his trunk. It seemed she had a working knowledge of some of the more shady brokers and dealers, which Pepper could make sure to use and exclude as necessary. They all rejoined the conversation when Tony asked Harry, "So where were you thinking of buying an island?" "I hadn't given it much thought yet, but I have to consider the plants," Harry said. "So, some place with clean water and plenty of sunlight?" Pepper asked. "Tropical would probably suit those needs the best. That also gives you the opportunity to start a resort. Once your operations are up, you could probably start hosting corporate retreats to introduce people to your products," Natasha said, thinking of white beaches and fruity drinks with little umbrellas. "I think it would probably be best to hold off on a retreat at this point. While we are still starting up crops and getting the land ready, we'll need as much security as we can get. I don't want the wrong people getting hold of the ingredients we'll be growing. I was actually thinking of making the island unplottable and hide it with a Fidelius," Harry replied. "Unplottable?" Natasha asked. "It's a form of protection. It makes it so people can't accidentally sail into it. Add the Fidelius and nobody would be able to see it. Like my house, someone could follow me, know where I disappeared and fire bullets in a circle and never even hit my house once. In my old world it was suspected that Avalon and Atlantis were protected by those spells," Harry supplied. "Couldn't you just make your own island and do that?" Tony asked, deciding to discuss the possibility that Atlantis or Avalon were real at some other time. "Think about it. A tiny island with a couple of large expanded greenhouses. You could still buy an island where your products and services are featured, and then right next to it without anyone's knowledge, there's an invisible island that hosts all your stores and crops." "I wouldn't know how to go about making an island, Tony," Harry said with a thoughtful look. "Your idea about large expanded greenhouses, however, does have some merit. I could even build a house there. A private beach with nobody able to find me, current company excluded, does sound like a dream. Stark Industries would need its own lodgings as well, for business purposes of course," Tony said with a friendly smile Harry had never seen before. "Your place isn't built yet, and there goes the neighborhood already," Natasha responded with an exasperated smile, placing a hand on Harry's knee, making him smile and blush slightly, distracting him again. "Tony, let the man enjoy the dream for a moment before you go destroying his imagined freedom," Pepper said. "That being said, it would be nice to have a secret getaway with some friends in the area." Natasha did not miss the plural in the statement and smiled at Pepper. "You know, having dinner parties and a barbecue every now and then would be better if you could invite your neighbors," Natasha said, squeezing his leg. Yeah. That does sound like a good idea." Harry mentally shook himself, suddenly realizing what they were doing. "Hey, you guys are supposed to be my friends. Let me enjoy my island before laying claims," Harry said with half a smile before looking at Natasha. "And you, Natasha, are pushing it." Harry looked down at her hand that had moved up to his thigh and back at her. She looked away unrepentantly and winked at Pepper, her hand staying where it was. "Your currently imaginary island, you mean?" Tony asked with a smile of victory. Harry was looking at Natasha as she ignored him. He decided to play dirty as well. He put his hand on her knee, gently, and sent a mild tickling charm down her leg. She shivered and her breath caught for a moment, before she looked at him with that hungry look again. Somehow he felt he had won that round as well, but would pay for it later. He kept his hand where it was and decided to keep the tickling charm in place. He smirked and turned to Tony. Once your lady is able to set up a gallery and an auction, I suspect I'll be able to start shopping. That might take a bit of time, Harry. We need to have the items authenticated and then declared as new finds. I'm sure Tony could come up with a story about having discovered a sealed cargo container somewhere and salvaging it. Pepper said, having noticed Natasha's flush and look. I'm afraid that will take some time. She then stood up and said, I need to visit the ladies. Care to join me, Natasha? Natasha was conflicted. Whatever Harry was doing was giving her goosebumps, but she realized that it was some form of punishment for doing something similar to him. She sighed inwardly and agreed. As they walked away, Pepper asked quietly, what was that? Let's just say Harry has the magic touch. At Pepper's scandalized look, she said quickly, not like that. He was somehow touching my entire leg at once. It felt, she shuddered, very nice. You're a lucky girl. I can't remember the last time I felt like that. Pepper pouted. Probably never. You don't understand. It was truly magical, she said, flushing at the memory. Too bad he's such a nice guy. I was tempted to make a scene, she trailed off. Harry and Tony couldn't hear what they were saying, but the giggles were telling. You weren't doing anything uncouth under the table, were you? Tony asked, mock stern gaze in place. Harry just smirked. I just touched her leg, I swear. Then he added, maybe a little magic was involved. Her reaction was noticeable. You have to tell me what you did and if the same is achievable with runes. Tony begged. I'm afraid I don't know the runes for a tickling charm, Harry said with a waggle of his eyebrows. If I need to tattoo a rune schema on my skin to get the same results, I'll do it. Harry, you had the Black Widow in what looked like full-blown heat. Tony said in awe. I wasn't aware. Good to know, though, Harry said with a slight blush and a thoughtful look at the same time. Don't tell them I said that, though. Pepper would skin me, Tony whispered as he saw them come back. And what are you two whispering about? Pepper asked with a knowing look at Tony. We were just discussing how beautiful our dates are tonight. Harry came to the rescue. He got up and held Natasha's chair as he had done when they had arrived. Tony was about to do the same, but Pepper sat down before he could. Way to make me look bad, Harry, he mumbled. When Harry sat back down, Natasha took his hand in hers and put it on her thigh firmly. She gave him a look and Harry just smiled, applying the same charm. She immediately shuddered in pleasure, but said nothing, keeping her hand on his, until dinner arrived. Harry reluctantly removed his hand. She had amazing legs and the contact was probably doing as much for him as he was doing for her. They settled into amiable conversation about possibilities for their companies in the future as they ate, and some stories were shared. Harry told them about Bruce's new pet book, and everybody laughed until Harry elaborated. The Monster Book of Monsters? Seriously? Your people must be the strangest lot I've ever heard of, Tony remarked. I'll give you that, but there was never a dull moment, Harry said with a wan smile. And what about girlfriends? Pepper asked. I remember you talking about your best friends and acquaintances, but never a girlfriend. Harry looked uncomfortable. I did have a girlfriend on and off for a couple of years, but when I realized my association with them was putting her family at risk, a family that had cared for me for many years and felt like my own, I broke it off and focused on ending the war. Harry had a far-off look, remembering his loss again. That didn't stop them from being targeted anyway. I'm sorry, Pepper said. I didn't mean to bring up something like that. Tony, deciding to distract Harry, asked, just the one? From what you told us, girls were throwing themselves at you. He's not the sort to take advantage like that, Natasha interjected, smiling at Harry. Thanks, Harry replied, putting his hand on her thigh and squeezing it for a moment, but not applying a charm this time. She didn't seem bothered. Tony was wise enough not to mention the byplay. So, who wants dessert? He asked as their waitress showed up. Having stopped flirting with Tony once she noticed he seemed completely unaffected. Harry ordered a sundae and Natasha ordered a slice of cheesecake. Tony and Pepper ordered themselves some sort of alcoholic coffee drinks, one hot and the other cold respectively. When it arrived, Harry and Natasha did not share their desserts, like they were in some sort of romantic story, preferring to tell each other how much they enjoyed their own. It was another contest of sorts, with each of them trying to convince the other that they should have ordered something else. Tony and Pepper were silent, enjoying their drinks and having a muted discussion of their own. When the bill came at the end of their evening, Pepper took it before anyone else could, stating that she was using Tony's company card and writing it off as a business expense. They laughed, good-humoredly, and let her, not knowing nor caring that she was serious. "So, where to?" Harry asked after they had stepped out and onto his concealed carpet. "I think I'm going to call it a night. Both Tony and I have some work to get to in the morning," Pepper said. "If you could drop us off at Tony's house." "Of course. Where would that be?" Harry asked. "You didn't know? I've got a place right here in Malibu," Tony exclaimed. "I'll show you the way." Tony showed Harry where to go, obviously not following the roads. Instead, they were flying along the ocean, enjoying the scent and sounds of the sea. When they reached their destination, Harry was impressed. "This place is amazing," he exclaimed. "Oh yeah, this is my baby. All the windows are fully capable screens with dimming and shading as necessary. The walls are all reinforced. Security is better than you could find anywhere else, except maybe for yours," he ended lamely. "Well, I think it's beautiful. This place looks like a piece of art. All the slanted walls, stylishly smooth, curved corners and glass. I can see why you love it," Harry said, looking around the place, never having seen its like before. "Why, thank you, Harry. I did work directly with the architects designing it," Pepper said, proudly. "Care for a nightcap?" Tony asked. Harry looked at Natasha, who shook her head and said, "I think I've had enough to drink." "Okay then. I think we'll go now. I've had a long day," Harry said, thinking of his adventure to Asgard. "Thank you for a wonderful evening. I really enjoyed it." "We'll have to do so again sometime," Pepper said as she stepped forward and hugged Harry and then Natasha. "Good night," Harry said as he shook Tony's hand and then went to hold the door for Natasha as they left. "Don't be a stranger," Tony called after them. After all, he wasn't planning on staying away from Harry's place. As Harry lifted off, he asked Natasha where he should take her. She pointed and Harry set the carpet to moving the indicated direction, back along the coast the way they had come. As soon as they were out of sight of Tony's house, she moved to sit right next to him. The little bit of wind was playing with the hem and collar of her summer dress, suddenly making Harry very aware that he was alone with a very attractive, very feminine Natasha. He had to divert his eyes as they were inexorably drawn to her body. He started getting slightly uncomfortable as his clothes suddenly felt very confining. "Are you all right?" She smirked at him, very aware of what she was doing. She was good at what she did and probably better at reading people's body language than Coulson. "I'm fine," Harry lied, his voice suddenly not as confident as he wanted it. "Are you sure? We could always lie down and look at the stars if you're tired of sitting," she said in a breathy voice. The carpet betrayed him again as it came to a stop. She smirked at him, put a hand on his chest and pushed him gently into a laying position against one of the cushions. She was laying right against him, her upper body on one elbow, as she moved closer to him. Harry did not fight it, he was only a man. Once her soft upper body made contact with his chest, the world seemed to fall away again. It was a couple of hours later that Harry arrived home. He stowed the carpet and went to bed with a soft smile on his face.